Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the safariLIVE pre-drive drive. It's myself and Craig out on this beautiful day here in sunny South Africa, and we are searching for the zebra that was savaged by lions in the early hours of this morning. If you watched the sunrise safari, you would have seen right at the end that unfortunately one of the McCurdy members was attacked by a lion but survived. Us McCurdys, we are strong, we are fighters, and it managed to get away. But now I want to find my friend and see how this poor thing was doing. I couldn't believe that after we sat with it for a little bit longer after the show ended, and it put its head down and it started eating and behaving like a normal zebra, just with a slight limp. It's obviously very sad, but it just goes to show you how extremely resilient these animals are. So I'm quite keen now to follow the zebra every day. Hopefully we'll be able to see it on a regular basis as well. It either heals or unfortunately we're going to watch it deteriorate. And that's just one of those things out here, is nature is cruel, but the herbivores can fight back, as clearly that zebra did. So we're going to go and see if we can find it. I did have its tracks crossing around over quarantine. I also had lots of lion tracks all over somewhere as well. They like this drainage.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon. It's a blazing 31 degrees centigrade, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. That is a kudu bull, and this is safariLIVE.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Hello everyone. As I said, it is very hot out here, but very pleasant on this early autumnal afternoon here in the northeast corner of now sunny South Africa. My name is James Henry. David Eastor's on camera. There it is. That is his bent thumb. On the other vehicle, we've got Taylor McCurdy, and she is being filmed by the recently recovered Tick Bite Batman. That's very nice. And then out on foot, when eventually we get the Gowrie repeater working, you don't need to worry about that. Tristan will be on foot with Viam Durenbrak, who has just recovered from the, well, traumatic experience he had today of witnessing a spotted eagle owl being dissected by yours truly. I think I'm all right. Sorry about that. Hashtag safariLIVE is how you get hold of us. And indeed, you are encouraged to do so on a regular basis during the course of the afternoon. Please do talk to us. Any comments or questions? Hashtag safariLIVE. I apologize for my opening. I don't know what happened there. I think I had a piece of chocolate, and I don't normally, and I think maybe that's what it was. There is a very beautiful flower whose name I have remembered. Well, I've only remembered it because Judy H. told me again. It's called Syncolostinum bracteosus. Now, as you say that many times so that you never forget it, Syncolostinum bracteosus, let us head across to Taylor McCurdy and find out what she is going to be doing this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're as excited as me for this beautiful sunset safari on the most gorgeous day here in South Africa. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today, as well, James described him earlier, he's well now, he's not got any more tick bite fever, and of course it is Craig, aka Batman, manning the camera. So I'm sure that you can all guess exactly where I'm going, because I'm devastated about my dear zebra, who is a member of the McCurdy herdie. So we are going towards the dam cam. So thank you for whoever let us know that's where the zebra is, standing underneath one of the trees near the dam cam. That's exactly where we're going. And if you do see anything really... Rebecca, please may I have that name again? I've got to change them. Elaine, thank you, Elaine. You've actually notified us. And just as Elaine's done, if you have seen anything or see anything interesting that's at the dam cam, please let us know. #safariLIVE with whatever information you can get for us. That's great, because unfortunately we're not always at the dam. So I'm going to go there, though I can see James's car. I'm going to have to boot him off the road if he goes to my zebra. No, I'm just joking. I just hope that poor thing survives. I can see what James is looking at. I'm not going to show you, so we'll cover up. I don't want to spoil the surprise. And we'll just try and sneak past him, and let's go have a very quick look at that zebra. Right, so what I'm going to do is, before James's surprise runs away, we're going to go to of course, our injured zebra. Let's go back to James and see what little surprises he's got for you.
The surprise, everybody, is a enormous, delicious sponge cake. No, it's not. It's a little sounder of pigs. I'm obviously thinking about sweet things at the moment. Anyway, there's a lovely little sound of pigs, and we see them quite regularly on the clearings here, along with the recently injured McCurdy herdie. And indeed, we now, in addition to the normal impala and zebra and warthog that we have in this clearing, we've got some gorgeous kudu, as we showed you to start with. And that is a herd of 3 bulls, or 3 or 4 of them actually. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bulls. Maybe 5. And I know they look like they're grazing. That's quite interesting. That's the youngest one in the front there that you're looking at. And they look like they're grazing, but they're not. They're not eating grass. They're eating low-down forbs. So forbs, or unidentified, many of the flowers, perhaps they're eating Syncolostinum bracteosus as we speak. But that's what they're going for. They don't eat grass. In fact, they almost never eat grass. They can from time to time, but almost always they'll be looking for the leaves of dicotyledons, or flowers down there on the ground. Now, David, I'm going to ask you to turn the camera over to the left-hand side there, so that our viewers might behold the dusky lark on the ground in the shade, just at the edge of the shade. You see him there? Keep going. You're in the right spot. Yes, go to the left slightly. There you are. Well done, you see. The dusky lark is now singing. Well, not really. He just looks slightly shocked. Well, that, of course, is on account of the heat. Now, we've had lots of different birds doing this sort of thing. As Rebecca says, this bird is waiting for his delicious sponge cake. Yes, indeed he is. We've had the dusky lark. That's not a common bird here. Yes, we see it from time to time, but not common. We've had the Caracan button quail, which we have failed to find. Unfortunately, we do hear them all the time going, ooh, ooh. Then we had Brent's red-collared widow, and we had white-winged widow with me the other day. And so the rain has brought in some wonderful bird life around here, and that's a great relief, of course, because along with the long grass and beautiful conditions, the rain has brought much place for the cats to hide. And that's why we're not seeing a great deal in the way of the Nkuhuma pride. We still have no idea where Karula is or what she's doing. So I think our plan today is going to be to head down towards the south, towards Treehouse Dam. Let's go and see what's happening down there. As I say, or as I mentioned, we've had a little bit of an issue with what we call the Gari repeater, which is just a piece of equipment, a fairly large piece of equipment down there, and it means that if that's not functioning, we're rather limited as to where we can go. So we're going to have to drive very slowly. Thankfully, quarantine has got much to look at the moment. Right, now Taylor has unfortunately, well, fortunately for the sake of the show, but unfortunately for the member of the McCurdy herd, he found the bleeding and injured animal.
Now, before we show you the zebra, of course, and some of you may have not been watching on the dam cam, and you have to remember that nature is so cruel and it is hard to see these types of things. So it is quite gruesome, but it's just important. It's a really good experience to try and learn from something like this, to be able to follow the story, and hopefully I'll be right in saying that the zebra, if it has a chance, if it has the best odds against it, it can still survive. It's not the first time that I've seen something like this. So let's take a closer look at the zebra. Now, it's a relatively young zebra. It's not particularly old. I haven't seen it if it's a male or female. It looks like it could be a mare, a young mare. We'll see if we can get a proper look. It's always quite difficult, especially when they're particularly young. Yes, it looks like it's a mare. And she's not very old either. Is she a mare? Is it a mare? Yeah, it does look like a mare. I would say it's a tough one. Only a couple of years old, maybe 3 years old. So still got a bit of growing to do. So quite tough. However, is that it's a massive piece of skin that is now, of course, been ripped off. You can see it hanging onto the ground. And now, Debbie, you were actually wondering if that was a piece of flesh and skin. It is indeed. So hopefully the zebra will turn around again, and then we'll be able to have another look at the wound. And it like I said, it's not the greatest thing, of course, to see. But it's just the skin. The stomach is not damaged in any way. On its right shoulder, just below its shoulder, it has got a rather large laceration, most likely from a claw, even a bite mark. And then on its back right leg too, as you sort of go down past the hock, you'll see that there's a couple of lacerations too. And I'm sure the zebra is very sore. You can see it's limping. But these animals are unbelievably resilient, and they are able to overcome the worst nightmare that we can think of. Animals can overcome. I mean, imagine the zebra last night in the early hours of this morning, and I'm pretty sure it was one of the lionesses that did this, because I did see a set of lioness tracks on the middle road now, just this afternoon. So I think that she must have jumped onto the zebra, and then somehow, unfortunately for her, got stuck underneath it. And if you've ever seen a horse chop and kick before, let alone a zebra, you know what a nightmare it can be and how strong they are. And if the lion was not in the correct position, she could have got stomped on, kicked, hoofed in the face, which would honestly explain the wounds underneath its stomach. I think that it was sort of being ripped as it was trying to get away. And luckily for the zebra, that's all it did. Otherwise, it's actually looking really good. It puts its head down, even though I'm sure it's in exceptional pain and must be annoying with all the flies and things sitting on it. It's actually laid in the sand. And that's not a bad thing either, putting a layer of dust over that wound. It may sound like it's going to keep it infected. However, it will just stop the biting flies and things from harassing it. Okay, what we'll do is we'll reposition again. Quickly reposition. Cedar, you're wondering what time I think the lions attacked the zebra. It's a tough one. So, actually, I just want to show you. Look at these two boys very quickly. Before we go around to the zebra, it's slowly making its way to the road. Here we've got two impala rams boxing now for this territory. So Cedar, it's a really tough one. Apparently, the lioness came down to have a drink, and I think a male lion too, at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And their tracks actually come from the east. So I think they had a drink first, and then they made their way back up towards quarantine, where they chased the herd of zebra around. Because remember, Tristan had all those zebra tracks. I don't think he got the zebra. I think he just had their tracks going along Vuyatela access towards the gate, so going west. So I reckon it was probably between 1 o'clock and about 4 o'clock this morning. So relatively early, but a wound like that can heal quite easily. Right, so these boys are having a bit of an argument. We'll let them battle it out. We need to reposition now to get back towards our zebra to have a closer look. But I'm going to send you back across to Mr. Henry. And I must tell you, he was dancing earlier, so who knows, you may get a song and tune.
I may have been dancing earlier. Well, was I? No, I don't think I was. I don't know what she's talking about. The Impala, of course, that she was talking about are going to find each other increasingly distasteful, as we've discussed over the last little while. Anyway, there are the female version of the first antelope we saw today, the kudu. And these are the ladies and one young man. Unless, just looking at the thinness of the one with the horns as horns. You know, you do sometimes get female kudu that have horns. They've obviously got more testosterone than others. Pradeep, you're wondering about the difference between deer and antelope. Ostensibly, the difference is that one, namely the antelope, grows horns out of the front of their heads. They are attached to the skull, and they do not fall off. Deer grow... No, those are both bulls, I can see that. Deer grow antlers every season, and they then fall off. Now, Pradeep, I'm not sure if I'm perhaps taking a liberty here, but with a name like that, I'm wondering if you are not perhaps either in India or of Indian extraction, because India is one of the only places I know of where antelope and deer occur together. They don't occur here together. They're only antelope in Africa, and certainly in the New World there are no antelope at all, except you get something called a pronghorn antelope, which is you get 3 or 4 antelope and a gazelle and various other fascinating things, but it's the only place I know of where deer and antelope exist together. If somebody would like to correct me on that, then they're more than welcome, but that's as far as I understand it. It's a rather lovely sighting. Just that you might be wondering what that great big solar panel there in the background is. It's a pump house, which pumps the water to where we live. Lovely waving of the grasses there in the wind. See that, David? Now, we're going to be doing a safariLIVE story on grasses soon, and David was very, very insulting about it. He said he thought he didn't think he'd make it through all 2 minutes of it before he passed out. David, of course, didn't realize that he will be shooting the safariLIVE story, and because of it he will be learning extensively about the ecology of the grasses of this area, and he's very excited now. He's shaking his fist in joy. Marvelous. Right, we're going to try and move forward now, and in case we lose signal, Taylor is going to take over now with the zebra lying on the floor.
Now, of course, as you look at the zebra, and as James says, it has gone from a standing position to laying flat on the ground. I'm really not that concerned just yet. I think the reason why the zebra has decided to lay flat on its side, it almost flopped to the ground. So it is difficult for it to bend down, as you can imagine, when you've had half of the skin on your body removed by the claws of a lion, is that now the flies can't bother it. And I think that must be one of the most... I mean, you've seen how upset I get when the flies fly in my eyes and my nose. Now imagine having a massive wound like that and the annoyance it must feel to have all those flies around you. Again, it's got a tail that it can swat with, but can you imagine its tail swatting against that open wound? It'll be exceptionally painful. So it is one of those things. So I think it's getting some relief by doing that, of course. And thinks it's going to have a siesta. It's weak. It's probably not feeling particularly hungry. Let's have another look at the zebra. Now, Gar, you're wondering if the rest of them are curdy-hurdy. If you're wondering who the McCurdy-hurdy is, it's a group of zebra that I stumbled across on quarantine and managed to get quite close to them on foot, which was unusual. And then the name, the McCurdy-hurdy, was given to them. So, Gar, you're wondering if the rest of the herd will shun this zebra? I don't think so, not at all. I think that's exactly what the zebra was doing this morning, was actually looking for the rest of the herd, because yesterday afternoon they were down hanging around here by the dam. They sort of have a routine. They start off on quarantine, spend the night there and most of the morning, and slowly make their way down towards the watering hole where there's these nice big knob thorns and marulas that provide a bit of shade. There's also good grazing down here. And I think it's just going to wait it out, and hopefully the rest of the herd does decide to come back this way. But this is the other thing now. We don't know if that herd is going to keep away for a long time. Cindy, now you're wondering if she's separated from the herd because the rest of them were fleeing from the lions. That's exactly what's happened. You'll probably find that this one maybe got left behind a little bit, or got confused in the process, or the lioness was laying in the grass and she jumped up as the animals were dashing past. It could have been a number of different scenarios. We can only speculate as to what happened. But the rest of the herd, unfortunately, is not like a herd of elephants. Is not really going to turn around and fight back, or a herd of buffalo. Typically, they will run away from the predator because zebras are not, remember, they're not the biggest animal out here. And of course, as we've seen many different times, zebras often fall victim to lions and end up on their menu. So definitely a mom with a foal is not going to hang around. They're going to book it and go in the complete opposite direction. And I actually think that this particular one is part of the small group. Like, it's actually quite interesting. The hurdy is quite big. James said he's seen 9 together, and then he's also seen 5. I thought the one day I saw a couple more, but I could be mistaken. So this group that we're seeing here of the 5, I think this one is from the ones of the 5. But I'm not going to bother the zebra too much more. Actually, I think it's unnecessary for us to sit here for such long periods of time. It does look relaxed now, but it's also very much stressed out. So I'd actually like to go and have a look around somewhere else. And now, James, you were wondering what are the chances of maggots affecting the wounds. It's definitely there. We could easily experience another myiasis case again, like we saw with Mfumo, because of such a large wound. But we're just going to have to really wait and see. And I think that's why this zebra is laying down on its side constantly. Now, the battle that's going to come in now, of course, is, is the zebra going to be eating enough? Is it going to be drinking enough water? Is it going to just be eating the bare minimum just to keep it alive? Today, it has been nibbling. I've seen it grazing for quite a number of hours. However, not as much as what it should. So that's another thing, of course, that they've got to face. But it's nature. If the zebra can overcome something like this, that's amazing. I'm going to move away from here just for a little bit. We'll come back a bit later. I just, like I said, I don't want to put this animal under too much stress. I don't want to draw unnecessary attention to it, so we'll go drive around somewhere else for a little bit and we'll come back here. Sorry, Bex, can I have that question again? Nancy, now you've asked if the lions will be able to smell the blood. I'm sure, most certainly. And a conversation Tristan and I were having is actually, we're wondering what the hyenas are going to do. Because if anybody that is going to be intrigued by the smell of blood, it's most certainly going to be the hyenas. Now, I don't know if the clan of hyenas that hangs around here are all together, or if we've got these separate den sites for the moment, as we've seen with Ribbon. But if we were on Elephant Plains and we had that massive clan of hyenas that hangs around down there, so the clan of hyenas, if you saw the video that Tristan posted the other afternoon with the lions with the Nkuhumas, that's the clan of hyenas I'm talking about. The zebra would not be here. They would have gone and taken it down earlier today. Right, so we're going to give the zebra just a bit of a break. Like I said, I don't want to push it too much. We're going to go searching for other things. James is driving down Weaver's Nest, the road of elephants. Let's go see if he's perhaps found any of those giants.
I've got to confess, I've absolutely no idea what on earth Taylor's talking about. Driving down the road of elephants. No, that's an impala. The road is called Weaver's Nest Road. I have seen elephants here, but I've seen elephants, well, pretty much everywhere. So there's an impala ram. And as Taylor was mentioning, they're starting to get a little irritated with each other, as I have done. And the indicator there, of course, not to put too fine a point of it, if you look under their tails, you can see that their testicles are starting to drop down. That is a function of the testosterone, and that will create sort of the irritation that they feel for each other. Their necks will thicken up as well. I feel like there should have been more to that sentence, but there wasn't. Yes, Lynn, they absolutely do. That's a great question. You say, do antelope chew bones like deer? I think that was your question. Absolutely they do. We have the kudu and the nyala specifically out here do it. I've seen them both doing it. I'm not sure if I've seen an impala doing it, but they may well. And what else have I seen doing it? I've seen tortoises doing it. Interestingly, they aren't antelope, of course, they're reptiles. Giraffe do a lot of bone sucking during the winter time especially. So yes, absolutely they do. We have 10 species of antelope here, and I don't know if all of them would chew bones. I'm not sure if wildebeest would. We so seldom see sable or reedbuck, so I'm not sure if either of them do. Not sure if, I haven't seen impala doing it. I've seen all the tragolaphids doing it, so the kudu and the nyala and the bushbuck. And there are some terrapins. There are lots and lots of them there, just sticking their heads up in the pan here. There we go. No, that's a piece of mud. That's not ideal, David. Bad luck. Try again. There we are. Serrated hinged terrapin. And they're sitting in a pan that quite often has buffalo lying in it. But there aren't any here today, are there, David? I can't see any. I feel I would see one if there was one here. Right. On we go. The next port of call will be Chelapan, which is not far from here. Now Rebecca from Australia, as opposed to the final control, you would like to know about what the difference is between an antelope track and a nyala track. Is that correct? Rebecca, a nyala is an antelope. I think you're probably asking what the difference between an impala, perhaps, and a nyala track is. And the difference there would be that the nyala and the kudu and the bushbuck have got much more rounded tracks than do the impala, which have very sort of spiky, straight ones. Let me try and find you one, rather. I could try and draw it, but that would just result in a serious state of confusion for you, because my drawing is so absolutely appalling. But you know basically what a cloven-hooved animal's track looks like. It looks like the two lobes of the hoof with a gap in the middle, and then it really does depend on the animal as to what the shape of those two cloves are. And in the case of the impala, it's pretty long and spiky in the front and very straight edged. In the case of the nyala and the kudu, it's much rounder on the outside. But you'd have to see them next to each other or have them pointed out to you to be able to discern the difference. If I was to just, I'm telling you the difference now, but really you'd struggle to see the difference based on what I've told you. They're about the same size, not much difference. And if I find some of each, I will show you. Quite astonishingly, though, there seem to be no nyala tracks here. At least no impala tracks. I wouldn't be that surprised about nyala tracks, but I'm sure we'll find some during the course of the day. The pans are distinctly free of buffalo at the moment. I thought they were coming back. We certainly had 1 or 2 days, Herbie and I, when we were on walk, and we saw some buffalo in these pans, but that seems to have, dried up a little. So obviously the grasslands are still pretty healthy up north in the Manyeleti and down the south of the Sabi Sands. Taylor is now looking for the perpetrators of the crime that you have all been forced to witness during the course of this afternoon.
We are indeed searching for the culprits, and hopefully we will find them. I think what we're going to do, we've just come down Philemon's cut line. I'm going to go along Zoe's very quickly. Let's have a quick look. And we're going to weave in and out of Rebecca's road. I don't know if you remember the one morning Darby and I'm also going to grab a guarri bush to swat all of these flies. is the one morning Darby and I managed to find those lions from quarantine looking across towards Rebecca's. Now there's a whole network of old 2 tracks that run through there from a leopard sighting with Karula and the cubs, and then as well as that lion sighting. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're lying around in there, because we haven't had any tracks coming out. We haven't had any tracks on Philemon's cut line, nothing on Rebecca's, nothing on Zoe's this morning. We've sort of done a big square around them. So that suggests that they must be in this block somewhere between quarantine and Rebecca's. And there's a lot of little mud wallows. So we're going to go and drive around in there and have a look and see if we can find them. I think that's going to be our best bet. Tristan, of course, is going to give us a hand too. And definitely with Herbie's expertise in tracking animals, I think we should have a good chance if we've got a vehicle and the bushwalk team moving around in that area. And then if we... Hang on. What's going on over here? What track was that I've just seen? Nothing. I'm imagining things. It was the track of about 3 impala hooves on top of each other. Never mind. That looked, for a moment, it looked very much like a lion track or a predator track of some sort. Well, let's keep looking around here. I'm just going to double check again, because there's definitely a possibility that the lions could have moved during the day. It has been quite warm though, so my money's more on them relaxing and sleeping it out under the shade of a tree. Rebecca, what did you say about an insect? Oh, there was an insect on the lens crawling around. Hello, Alexandre, who is a new viewer. So everybody from our regular Safari Live viewers, please give Alexandre a very warm welcome. Now you are wondering whereabouts in South Africa is this and what time is it? Well, the time is we'll start there exactly 29 minutes past 4 in the afternoon. And we are in South Africa at the moment, and we're in a private nature reserve called the Sabi Sand. And essentially the Sabi Sand is one of the very many private concessions in this area that is open to the Kruger National Park. So essentially there are boundary fences, but around the Kruger National Park, the Sabi Sand, the Timbavati, and you name it, and Thorny Bush is now open to the Kruger as well. And the animals have basically got about 8.5 million acres of land to roam around on. We have 4 properties that we're allowed to traverse on. So we're on Djuma Private Game Reserve at the moment. We've also got Chitwa we can drive on, Cheetah Plains, and as well as Arathusa. So we're basically in the northeastern corner of South Africa, if you have a look at the map, which is quite nice. Right, let's check here, because this is still the drainage line, the possibility where these lions could be sleeping. What we'll do is we'll go through Rebecca's now. We'll go all the way down, and then we're going to run all the way along that drainage system just to the right of us. And let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that we're going to get lucky. But what we will do is later, we're definitely going to go back past that zebra. I do just want to give it a little bit of a break. And then we'll see, just before sort of sunset, I think we'll go back around and we'll have a sit, and maybe we'll put the infrared on to not disturb it. We'll just turn everything off completely and then watch it like that. I think that's going to be our plan. Right. Let's go and see. But I feel a little bit sad for that zebra. And it is only natural for us as humans to, when you see something like that, to feel saddened and want to intervene. But of course we can't, because it's natural. We didn't have anything to do with that. That zebra was lucky enough to escape with the, well, I'm so sorry, I just ate a bug and then I had to spit it out. That was not very ladylike of me, I apologize. But luckily I live in the bush. Right, James has got himself to a watering hole on a hot day like that. Surely there must be something there. Let's go take a look.
Well, there is something here, but it's a particularly scaredy cat something. It's a hippopoptamus, but it cannot hold its breath forever, so it's going to have to pop its head up eventually. So we'll just wait for it. Supposedly can stay underwater for up to 8 minutes. I hope we won't have to wait quite that long. Let me just have a look. Roughly 1,500 kilograms of hippopotamus there. Oh, you can see the movement there of the surface of the water there. Oh, up and breathe. There you go. We see we're not so terrifying, scaredy cat. Yes. I guess they can hold their breaths for so long because they almost never do anything. They just sort of sit there. Which is quite nice for them, I suppose. I think if you tend towards the lazy, I think a hippopotamus is what you'd probably want to be if you were an animal. Not so, David.
What about a lion?
Well, a lion, yes, but a lion's got to fight, David. If you're a lazy fighter, if you're a lazy cage fighter, then yes, maybe a lion's a good idea. But, I wouldn't suggest being a lion for you. You're not aggressive enough, I don't feel. No.
More of a monkey.
You're more of a monkey, are you? I see. And it's a very peaceful afternoon here, sitting with this hippopotamus. I suspect that he, like most of the chaps that find themselves alone in the waterholes, is a young bull hoping one day to take his own pod. Until then, he must live the life of a lonely bachelor. Poor fellow. He probably doesn't mind too much. Now you will read that they will stay underwater for between 1 and 8 minutes at a time. I have very seldom seen them stay underwater for more than 30 seconds at a time. 5 to 6 minutes, I'm just reading here, seems to be the longest period. And P-Hart, you say you really like the way they close their nostrils in the water. It's a remarkable design, isn't it, that they're able to close completely so that they don't get any water in the nose. And they've also got the same kinds of sphincters, which of course is a muscle that closes a tube. They've got the same kind of sphincters just inside the ears, which although they don't close the ears externally, they close the hearing tract. So they don't get water in their ears either. So they don't get surface ear, David, and have to go and have their ears blasted for wax like I have to every so often. You don't have that problem, do you?
No.
No. Hello, OJP. You're wondering about the sight that a hippo has underwater. OJP, yes, in theory they could see underwater, and in places like the Okavango Delta, I suspect they use their eyes quite extensively when they're under the water, moving along the channels, sort of walking along the ground and then pushing themselves up to have a breath and then sinking down again. But that's because the water's clear. No kind of eye will be able to see in the murky depths that is twin dams. So yes, although I think they probably can see underwater, no, I don't think that hippopotamus can see any further than you or I could see in water like this. Visibility 1 millimeter. And interesting, you can see how he's not vaguely worried about breathing. He's just sunk his nose in so that he doesn't have to breathe. James, I don't know whether to be astounded that you've asked me this question or deeply sort of complimented that you think I'd have any idea. You say, how big is a hippo's lungs compared with that of a manatee? I couldn't begin to tell you. A manatee, for those of you who don't know, is a sort of, well, it's like an enormous mixture between a hippo and a seal. And you get them in various parts of the world, most notably in the Amazon. There's something called an Amazon manatee, which is very, well, it's very ill. Not very ill, it's ill as a species. It's very highly endangered. We get two African species that are closely related called dugongs, one off the east coast of Mozambique. And I have no idea, I'm afraid, how big a hippo's lungs are in comparison with a manatee's. And funnily enough, hippos are actually also found quite near the dugongs of eastern Mozambique. Indeed, they have been found up to 3 kilometers offshore near Bazaruto Island, and that's precisely where you'd start looking for a dugong if you wanted to find one. In fact, I think I'm wrong. It is the dugongs in the west, in the east coast, in the Indian Ocean. I think off West Africa, though, I think there is the West African manatee. That's correct, I think. It's also confusing. But the deeply endangered one is the Amazonian manatee, which lives in the Amazon River in the freshwater there. Couldn't begin to tell you the volume of its lungs. James, if you manage to come up with any answers to how big they are in comparison, well, I'd love to know. Cedar, you're wondering about death and destruction out here. You're watching us sitting in Africa with what you've probably heard is the most dangerous mammal in all of Africa, great killer of multitudes of people, and you're saying to yourself, good gracious, how often does this hippo charge? Very seldom is the answer. Only if the water or their position in the water is threatened. A hippo is desperately in need of the protection afforded by water, both for energy and from a sort of protection from the sun point of view and a protection from predation point of view. So if there is any threat that gets between them and the water, or that they feel is going to try and separate them from the water in any way, then they become very upset, they become extremely threatened, and then they will charge. Now, in a position like this, that hippo has got no reason to charge us. You do hear every so often of hippos coming out of water, normally to get people away from the water. And certainly you hear about hippos, especially in the early mornings when they're making their way down to the water, or perhaps on cool days when they spend the day out of the water. If you as a human being get between them and the water, then you can be in trouble. It's not common though. There was one incident that I know of just down south from here at Londolozi, where one of their rangers was tracking, which is totally normal. In the middle of the morning, she wouldn't have expected there to be a hippo, and she and her tracker were walking past a hippo path where, I mean, given the time of the morning and where they were, they wouldn't have expected to find a hippo, and a hippo came out, grabbed her by the arm, and ripped most of the bicep off. The tracker picked the rifle up, because she was carrying the rifle, picked the rifle up, hit the hippo with the back end of the rifle. The hippo ran off, and thankfully the guests on the back of the vehicle were trauma nurses, and they went and they fixed her up, as best they could. She went off to hospital and obviously had to have quite a lot of reconstructive surgery, but she's back guiding now and she's absolutely fine. So yes, they can charge. It's very, very unusual, though. Shall we have one more look at him? Kaitek, you say, is hippopotamus Latin or Greek for water horse? As far as I'm aware, it is Greek. From the word, I'll check for you immediately. I'm 99% sure it's Greek and not Latin. Hippo meaning horse, potamus meaning water or river. Yes, it's Greek. Hippopotamus. Hippodrome, that used to be where they would race the chariots. What else has got the word hippo in it? And in fact, most people now associate the word hippo with the hippopotamus. But in actual fact, it does in fact mean horse. And the horse-like antelope, the hippotragids, those are the roan and the sable. When you say hippotragus, nobody ever thinks of a horse, do they? Alrighty, I think we've squeezed all we can out of this very pleasant sighting in the shade of this lovely hippo. Oops. And we're just going to drive gently up onto the wall there and see if we can't see down over the edge. Now, Ziggy, you're in Canada and wondering whether hippos give birth under the water. Ziggy, I've heard and read both accounts. I think what you'll find is that they give birth in very shallow water. I don't think they give birth in deep water. They give birth in shallow water, near the edges of pans and rivers and shallow pools, and that just provides a lot of safety. But the babies are comfortable in water almost immediately. Now, I was desperately hoping to see maybe little Hosanna sitting over here in one of these pans. And Paul B, looking in this water hole, you're probably thinking, well, I know some other nasty creature that lives in there, the crocodile, and you're wondering if it might attack a baby hippo. Yes, they would. A very big croc would attack a baby hippo if it could, but the mothers are extremely protective, which means that they actually live in sort of an uneasy peace in the same water bodies. And if we go to Chitwa Dam, I'm not sure we'll do that this afternoon, but certainly we have seen 2 crocodiles there living in relative harmony with the hippo, but certainly without the protection of the rest of the pod, they would almost certainly take baby hippopotamus. There is nothing that a crocodile does not consider fair game, including man and including its own kind. Crocodile is hungry enough, it will try and eat one of its friends. I'm just going to give you an update on the lions. The Nkuhuma Pride, or 3 of them, and the 6 cubs are on Buffelshoek at the moment. So we're not going to see them. Taylor's after the other 2, which are fast becoming known as the Nkuhuma Breakaway Pride, because they seem to be spending almost no time with the main pride anymore. There, David, is the kind of thing that you see in the Wind of the Willows. You see it there? Do you know what I'm talking about? David, well done. A water lily. I seem to remember there being water lilies in the Wind and the Willows. I can't remember the story at all, actually, but I remember being thoroughly amused and enjoying it as a youngster. I think my mother had to read it to me. I was a slow learner, David. I learned to read late. Now, I think I'm just trying to remember. I've forgotten the Latin name, so I'm just going to look it up quickly. Isn't that lovely? And it's waiting for a little frog to come and sit there. And some dragonflies. Very lovely indeed. There we are. Water lily, Nymphia, of course. Nymphia. Nymphia nuttali. There it is. This is a remarkable little book. I don't think you can even buy it anymore. But it's a sort of multi-guide, which of course if you're a naturalist you never buy a multi-guide. You only buy, books that are individual, because you need to know so much detail. And most of these multi-guides really don't have all of the species you want. But this one, quite remarkable. My mother gave it to me when I became a ranger many years back, knowing that I knew absolutely nothing. So any sentence in there would be of help in my chosen career. And it's been a help ever since. Right, Taylor is now up and running again. I think she was attaching some technical equipment to the car and she'd like to tell you all about it.
I would indeed like to tell you all about it. What we quickly went back to go and get was a vital piece of equipment that we need out here in the bush, and that was of course in the form of an infrared light. Now, especially because we've got this very injured zebra lurking around, there's potentially an opportunity for a really amazing sighting tonight. Whether it's going to happen or not, I'm not sure, but I'd rather be prepared than miss out on some exciting action. So we went back very quickly just to grab one of the infrared lights, so that if perhaps a clan of hyenas or the pride of lions pick up on the scent of that zebra and start stalking it again this evening, we can watch in complete darkness. Of course, you'll all be able to see. I'll be able to see on my monitor, but without interfering in any hunt whatsoever. And of course the old ways of us doing it, and this is so great, it just shows you how far along we've of course come with safariLIVE, is the fact that now we can sit and not disturb the animals. Before, you'd have the spotlight on, you'd have to switch off when they started stalking and sit in complete darkness. And then of course it's not great for you because you can't see anything. We literally have to sit in the dark. So that's why it is so important to have infrared, and the fact that we got them is brilliant. And I'm sure that you are all loving it. Especially, one of my favorite things to be able to do was actually the other night when we sat with that very relaxed herd of zebra. How great was that, seeing the elephants at night? Just carrying about... Excuse me. And again, here, and it starts. So yes, it's just great to watch the animals do their thing and as well as not miss out on any action in the evenings. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go onto Rebecca's again. I did drive it very quickly. There were no tracks, but then I shot back home. So let's go and check some of those 2 tracks that I was telling you about, those old off-road tracks. Herbie I just had a quick chat with Herbie as well. He's walking around. He's at the transformer at the moment, having a quick look to see if he can see any tracks, because that's apparently where the lions had crossed in from. Some other lions. It sounds like there's at least 2 or 3 females on the property, so it could potentially be the 3 females, the 6 cubs, and 2 Birmingham boys. We're not certain yet. Tristan has got a better idea, so once he's up and running, we'll ask Tristan to fill you in a little bit, and hopefully he'll give you better insight, or hopefully we can just, find the lions. Wouldn't that be great? Now remember, of course, this is a live interactive safari. If you've got any questions for myself, James, or Tristan this fine afternoon, you're more than welcome to send them through on Twitter, and then just add the hashtag safariLIVE. Right, are you ready to do a bit of investigating? I am. I like to play detective. It's one of the fun things out here in the bush, trying to put together pieces of the puzzle. We've got one very big piece of the puzzle. Like James said, we need to, of course, now find the culprits. I think Rebecca just called me Nancy Drew for a second. Where's my magnifying glass? Okay, we're not far now from the first 2 track that I'm going to take. And I'm really hoping it's just going to lead me straight towards the lions, because it's so thick at the moment. I don't know if I really want to be walking around in these drainage systems. You wouldn't be able to see a buffalo. And that's actually what happened to us yesterday. We saw this buffalo and was so close to us before we even realized that it was there. It's just his horns were sticking out above the long grass. It was wallowing in some mud. And then, of course, it got up and revealed how big it was. We don't want to be doing that, especially when I don't have Herbie by my side to look after me. So we'll just play it safe this afternoon. Okay, you ready? Here we go. My goodness, it's almost there. Well, I got a bit excited. We've got a little bit longer to go. Right. My goodness, you forget how long this road actually is every time I drive it. It feels as though it adds on a couple of yards. Let's see. And I wonder what is your feel about the zebra? Just as we're chatting, of course, is what do you think the chances of that zebra surviving? Here we go. Here's the off-road. It's going to low range. It's nice just to have a chat about it. Have any of you ever watched on safariLIVE before something like that, where a zebra or any animal has been mauled by a lion? Perhaps if you have, maybe have you had any of those experiences? It would be great to hear about some of them. But anyways, I'll tell you about a few of mine. Let's go across to Tristan now. He's finally up and running, and well, he's closer to the ground than I am. Maybe he's got some tracks to show you.
Indeed we are, Taylor. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's nice to finally be out and joining everybody out on this beautiful afternoon. As Taylor mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got VM the Wildebeest. And I know Taylor is now looking for lions, so we are in the same area helping her. I spent the whole morning this morning trying to find these lions, and we had very little luck. So I'm now back in the area and just going to check around in all the places that is very difficult to check around with a vehicle. So we're going to use our feet and go through the thickets and try and see if we can't track down these lions. and see where they've actually gone to. Now, I feel very, very sorry for that poor zebra. I think that zebra is going to be in a lot of pain, and it's one thing that it is lucky about is that it's on quarantine. Quarantine is an easy place for it to see what's going on, and luckily for it, there's not that much hyena pressure, not compared to a little bit further west of us. If that zebra was in the west, towards Elephant Plains and Simamili, its chance of survival would be almost zero because of that big hyena clan there, and it's just going to have to hope that the lions don't come across it in the next few weeks. That will allow it to be able to heal up and start to kind of remedy itself and repair that horrible wound that it has. Right, so we're going to try and get onto these tracks as quick as possible, and while we do that, let's go across to James, who's got something that the lions often like to hunt.
They do like to hunt it, but it's so very small, and they look like little donkeys when they're that small. Waterbuck, wagging their tails. Now, we've many times discussed their scent and their smell, and what I've got right now in my nose is the smell of a stable. So they smell quite strongly like a stable. That one smells worse than that now, of course. But look at them walking in amongst the flowers there. It's just very pretty. Now, while we enjoy the sort of peaceful scene of them there, I will tell you that after James's question, I went and showed David what a manatee looks like, because he thought it was an even-toed ungulate at one stage. So I thought I would show everybody what it looks like, because David, of course, is... Yeah, well, I mean, one wouldn't describe him as a total ignoramus, so perhaps many people don't know. There is a manatee, and that is the West African manatee. It looks like a sort of overweight seal. And then there's the dugong, just above it. And that lives in the Indian Ocean. The West African manatee lives above the equator in the Atlantic Ocean. And in some of the rivers, actually, all the way up the rivers, the West African manatee goes. Yes, and the Latin name of the dugong, beautiful name, dugong dugong, dugong dugong, very good. He's so cute. That is, I think, the cutest baby antelope. I'm not sure you get a cuter baby antelope than that. What do you think, David? Bushbuck is pretty cute, yes, I suppose so. And the ubiquitous monotonous lark. The whole herd now moving slowly away from the water, grazing up towards another pan. And I think, again, giving paid to the sort of legend that they hang around water the whole time. I really don't think that they do. Beautiful, beautiful scenes. Now we're going to head down towards Chitwa Dam and see if we can't find ourselves some more hippopotami and possibly a crocodilo. There won't be any manatees or dugongs, though. Lise, you say, how quickly is this grass going to disappear? Lise, it'll take it till probably at least July, I imagine. Or maybe June, maybe end of June. Much of what you're seeing now, though, is not grass. Much of that are forbs. Much of that is forbs. Much of that is forbs. Yes, because that is singular, David. Much of that is forbs. Sure, that's right. Anyway, much of what you're seeing forbs can be. And very little, or there are not many things that will eat the forbs, and so they will survive quite a lot longer than any of the grass in the understory. And the reason there's so many forbs and flowers and things there is because there wasn't a lot of grass to start with, and so it's almost a pioneer vegetation. So this area has been artificially cleared at various stages during its existence. That's made it a favored grazing place for many of the animals. That's resulted in much of the grass being grazed out, and therefore you get these pioneer sort of species. David, this is exactly the same place, the same squirrel that was here yesterday carrying something across the road. I'm going to reverse slightly. We couldn't, of course, look at it yesterday because we were in Wendy and she didn't have any signal here. Let's see if he comes across. I think he's carrying marula nuts to some kind of nest. Let's just give him 1 minute. And I'll finish saying there that, so what happens is as soon as the rain comes, this pioneer vegetation, which is made up of lots of wild flowers. There you can hear the hippos calling. Which is made up of lots of wild flowers, comes forth, and then there's very little in the way of grass underneath. The squirrel is not going to help us. Very unkind of him. Justin is out on foot, and he, rather like Taylor, is on the trail of the Nkuhuma breakaways. There's an elephant in the water.
Well, I'm not on the trail just yet. I am looking to try and find exactly where these tracks went. So when we're tracking lions or any of the cats, it's very difficult just to go walking in a random area and just hope that you're going to find footprints. The best way to be able to do it is to actually find the footprint itself, where it's crossed a road and accessed into a certain area. From there, then you get on behind the tracks and you start to follow slowly, and you look for any little signs of any little pug marks on the ground or flattened grass as you walk. If you look on our left hand side here, you see the grass is quite long, but when a lion or a pride of lions walks through that grass, you're going to find a situation where the grass is going to flatten out completely, and it's going to be much easier to see where they've walked. Also, you'll look for small little areas where there's pockets of sand that you can start seeing little tracks. You might find a toe, you might find an edge of the back of the pad, and that gets you into a situation where you're able to walk and find what you're looking for. So probably what we're going to do is, because I haven't found any tracks here, but this road that we're on at the moment is one of the main access roads for the reserve, and so the vehicle traffic on this road is really high, which means that most of the tracks from today unfortunately will have been driven over. So what Herbie and I have thought of is we're going to go into this area and we're going to start checking, and we're going to zigzag our way through and try and see if we can find these little open sections and see if there are any tracks in there. But we can't find any tracks from here where they actually crossed back into our side, so hopefully we'll find some sort of evidence of it, but I don't know if we will. It should be quite interesting to see how they've gone. Now, if we do find evidence of them going in, it's going to be quite a tough situation to do, because inside here the grass is probably about this high, so it's going to be like something out of the Gladiator scene when you're walking and all the grass is on either side. We'll have to watch where we're going. Now, interestingly enough, there are actually lion tracks here, but these are not the ones that we're looking for. So if you have a look, there we go. That is a big male lion footprint. If I put my hand, you can see that it is about the same size as my hand. Now, the reason why I know it's not fresh is because a lot of the rocks on top are loose. Had this lion walked here today, that rock would be flattened into the soil and it would have a very smooth appearance. So these are not the tracks we're looking for. We're looking for different ones. Now, while we carry on trying to find these tracks, I believe James has got a massive animal that is almost not visible in water, which is quite incredible.
This is the most exciting, wonderful, beautiful little sighting of an elephant having the best time. As you know, elephants love swimming, and this chap is having a real killer swim here, and I say killer because just around him there's a crocodile. He obviously doesn't give two hoots about the crocodile. The hippos are giving him a bit of gears. They're not that happy to see him there. And I think that's what that screech was earlier on when we were talking about the manatees. Now, this elephant, of course, is behaving like a manatee, isn't he, David? And he's just, you can see he's having fun. I tell you, animals don't play, animals don't have fun. They only do things for a purpose. This young bull is having a fun time. Oh, it's wonderful. Still afternoon, slight breeze, and now this elephant in this gorgeous light having a swim. Isn't this cool? what makes this so cool is that we're almost at eye level with him. And why? Because he's come right up to the sort of dam wall, and we're in the causeway. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. You say that a lot of you are saying this really makes you want to go for a swim. It's exactly how it makes me feel. Oh, this is wonderful. And that's not the only creature here. I'm just going to ask Dave to pan slightly to the right of the elephant. And there's a little green-backed heron on the bank there. There he is. He's going fishing. Not a bird that we see very often. We do see it from time to time, but not very often. Gee whiz, this is special. Now I wonder if we shouldn't sneak forward slightly to the second causeway there. Well, he's not going to get out that side. He's going to have to come back this way. Oh, that's wonderful. What do you think, Dave?
Give it a shot.
We're going to try it, everybody. Just very slightly forward. We might lose signal. Oh, no. Are we still live? Rebecca, are we live? Oh, we are live. Good stuff. Okay, well, there's the elephant. He's now disappeared on the corner. We can't see him. I don't think I want to move. I might have to. Shall we go up? Let's go up, because we'll come back to the hippo. The elephant is just such a treat. And a huge herd of impala running along the bank as well. Oh, that's gorgeous. Very special. Now, they will tell you, of course, that elephants are not particularly agile. You watch this chap climb out of that bank. You'd struggle to get out of that bank as a human being. I think he's also digging in the mud now. He might have to come back this way. Just phenomenal stuff. Let's see if he gets out here. Yeah, little bite to eat. And of course, the great question we were asked the other day by Judy H is, of course, we know that elephants don't have very waterproof skin. They lose water through it in the sun as a way of evaporative cooling. They don't sweat, they just lose water. And she said, do they get soaked? I mean, do they sort of absorb water? Do they not have a problem with that? And I couldn't really answer. And the answer is, I'm sure they don't, but I'm not sure what the mechanism is. As you can see, he is very wet, and he's now climbing out of the water. I suspect he might go back in. Elephants like to have long swims. He's just having the best time. Often young bulls like this. Yeah, there's Denny, you say, is this green stuff algae? I'm pretty sure that that's exactly what it is. I don't know what species of algae, I couldn't begin to tell you that. But I'm pretty sure it is algae, yeah. Good afternoon. How are you doing? That was quite nice to see, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Very special.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. There we go. He's had enough of his swim and he's climbed up a really very steep bank. And look, he does, I mean, he looks like he's carrying water. He's not like I mean, I don't know, I've seen rhino get into water and come out and they dry off much quicker than that. So maybe he does have a certain sort of sponge-like quality to his skin. David, you say, is there any animal that can sweat? Yes, absolutely. Most animals out here can sweat. Horses can sweat, obviously. Zebra can sweat. I'm pretty sure that rhino can sweat. I'm pretty sure also that most of the antelope species can sweat. So, yeah. I don't know for sure about rhino, but I mean, one of the reasons they give for the fact that oxpeckers don't go towards or don't sit on elephants ever, you'll notice that, is that they don't have sweat glands and therefore they don't attract ticks in the same way that rhino do. Now, I think rhino have got sweat glands, but I'm not entirely sure. That is a magnificent elephant sighting. I think we will now reverse and see if we can't get a nice view of the hippopotami. No, we can't just yet, I'm afraid. There's a vehicle in the way, so we might just have to look at them from this angle. But that's okay. It's not an unpleasant angle at all. Under the water. And the crocodilo? Oh, there he is. Let's go back a bit. Now. Apparently our signal is extremely high. That's certainly not something you hear when you're driving windy. We're right back there, Dave. I'm not about to reverse us over into the dam, am I? You sure? We are going to be starting a school drive in 5 minutes, everybody. So just be prepared for that. There's a beautiful shot here of a three-banded plover. Right here, David. That little bird, which is normally so far away from us. That's very cute. And the prettiness of the red and green is Rebecca, not from, where was the other Rebecca from? Canada, wasn't it? Straya. This Rebecca from Final Control says the contrast of the red and the green is so purdy. It is so purdy. Gorgeous. Gorgeous stuff. Now there is a crocodilo here. We did see him just before you came live to see the elephant. Where yon crocodilo is, I don't know, but here comes the green-backed heron. Right here. Oh, we just ducked down. You can just see his head there. And all the swallows massing now. As I said to you the other morning, the swallows are starting to mass in preparation for their trip home. And I don't know if we're going to... Oh, well done, Dave. That's very good stuff. And flying around here. picking up insects that are flying above the surface of the water. And the hippopotami up and down under the water in a big pod, now hugely spread out, of course, all over the dam. And in the background, in fact, I can actually see it. Dave, can you see the very far end there? You can see the hippo just to the right. Keep going. There, that lot. They were going. Since they were marking some territory. Right, let's head across to Tristan. He is apparently burrowing in the sand.
Well, I'm not burrowing in the sand just yet, but it looks like a male lion was burrowing in the sand. We can see where this male has walked, and then he's laid down right on the edge of the road. So there's a nice area where it's completely disturbed, and he would have been stretched out lengthways like this, and he would have rolled multiple times, and that's how we know it was him. You can actually see where his footprint goes over here. So that is for him. Now it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because his direction has been going south the whole time, and there's no further tracks that are going down the road. It looks like he's almost turned around and headed back the same way he's come. So we're going to have to try and look very, very carefully and try and see where these tracks end up. It's going to be a tough afternoon, I think, because unfortunately this road has ended up being driven over extensively, so it's quite tough to actually see where he's gone. I'm trying to look around and see any signs of other tracks that are in this area, but it doesn't look like there is anything that has gone into Vuyatela. It looks like everything is going southwards or westwards into Arethusa. So like I say, I don't know if the guys maybe got confused and saw old tracks. I know that Taylor did have a Birmingham here the other day, and the Birmingham went straight north up this road, so maybe that's the tracks that they ended up following. Now I'm just going to quickly say hello to Neil. Hello Neil, how are you doing? Hello everybody. They're another one of the lodges that are in this area, and they look around also for animals, and they have guests on their vehicles, so it is not uncommon to see them, and they might be in the area looking for the lions too. I know Herbie just spoke to him, so maybe Herbie had a better update for us as to where exactly they last had a track. Like I say, for me, these lions look like they went into Arethusa. I don't think that they're on our side, but you never know. We'll keep on persevering and keep on trying. I think we'll still see just further south there's another road that goes down, and I think potentially they could be down there and moving into that area. So we're going to just go and have a look and see if they are there. Yeah, I don't think so though. I think they've cut into this area and then headed up into Arethusa. Now, it is a beautiful afternoon though, I must be honest, and just now I know you were discussing sweaty animals, and it's very, very nice that we got out a little bit later. I think if we had been out on a walk the first hour, we would have been one of those sweaty animals, whereas now we're not. Now we're just in the nice coolness of the shade. The sun is dropping nicely. There's some trees on this western horizon, so where we're walking is actually very, very pleasant, and it is probably the most beautiful afternoon I've had in a while. The temperature is absolutely perfect. There's not a cloud in the sky. It is really quite something to be out here and on foot, and just to be out and walking and listening to all the sounds is quite a magical feeling. It's always nice to stretch the legs and have a different perspective on being out here. Right, so this afternoon we are going to be continuing with our school drives, who are going to be joining us shortly. Now it is very important that we have these, so without further ado I'm going to go across to James so he can say hello to all the schools and we can get the school drive started.
Welcome all of you from Westlake Plains, Crawford Plains, Westlake and Three Oaks schools. It's such a beautiful afternoon here in Africa, and it's wonderful to have you with us. My name is James, and on camera is David. That's his bent thumb. You will meet Tristan soon. He's on foot tracking lions, if you can believe it. And also Taylor is looking around for lions. She's in a vehicle. For now, let's have a look here at this beautiful waterhole, while I tell you that we're in the northeast corner of South Africa, and I know some of you in Canada think you're in the most beautiful country in the world, and those of you in America think you're in the most beautiful country in the world. You'd all be wrong, of course. This is the most beautiful country in the world. This is South Africa. And we're here in a place called the Greater Kruger Park. And it's a very, very famous wildlife area, and there we have a hippo. If we go down a bit from there, just underneath that tree there, David, there was a hippopotamus. Now, clearly he's disappeared. There we go. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Now he's hiding. There are lots more hippo in this dam, and hopefully we'll see a few of them. Well, Ravreet, you've asked a question that is, well, it's a difficult one to answer. You say, how many species are there in this park? Well, Ravreet, it's easy to answer how many mammals there are. It's easy to answer, sort of easy to answer how many birds there are. But it's not easy to answer how many in total there are. There are birds, there are mammals, there are frogs and reptiles and fishes and trees and insects and arachnids and all sorts of things. So there are thousands of species here, and we haven't managed to count them all, because half the time we don't even know they're here, especially when it comes to the little things. But we have, for example, that's a swallow, that's a barn swallow. We have, for example, 9 or 10 species of antelope here. We've got elephants and hippo and buffalo. And then in terms of the carnivore, we've got lions and leopards and hyenas and cheetahs and wild dogs and jackals and 4 species of mongoose and genets and civets and honey badgers and striped polecats and any number of bat species, some of which we don't even know. So it really is quite difficult to say how many species we have. Now, do you recognize that bird, everybody? I bet you do. I bet all of you are thinking, they can't be in South Africa, they must be in America. That's a bald eagle. Well, it is certainly similar to a bald eagle, but it's the African fish eagle, which is very closely related to the bald eagle, but it's a little bit smaller than the American bald eagle, because everything in America is bigger than it is everywhere else in the world. I'm joking, it's not really. But that is slightly smaller than the American bald eagle. I'm sure you get bald eagles in Canada as well, I imagine. Possibly on the west coast, I'm not sure exactly. Heighton, you say, why is South Africa a great place for a safari? Well, Heighton, it's because if you come to a place like this where we are on the western fringes of the Great Kruger Park, well, you can see all the animals. It's safe to come here. There's some beautiful lodges, one of which, of course, we're sitting just opposite. This lodge is called Chitwa Chitwa. And you would come and stay there, for example, and you'll come on game drives. There are great guides here who will show you around, and you've got a really good chance of seeing elephants and lions and cheetah and wild dog and giraffe and buffalo and all sorts of interesting things. We're going to drive up onto the top of this wall here. And while I answer Ryland and Sahara's question, which is how do hippos stay underwater for so long? Well, they just are adapted to it. They've got big lungs. They don't use a lot of oxygen because, remember, they're not running around. They're sitting in the water the whole time, so they're not actually swimming. They're just kind of standing there. And so they've got big lungs, and their blood absorbs a lot of oxygen, and that's how they're able to stay underwater for such a long time. Let's see if we can't get another view of all these hippo, because there's so many of them. Megan, you say, is water always the safest place for hippos? Megan, yes, it is, but for one noticeable exception. The one time that it's not the safest place for hippos is when they are very young and without their parents, in which case it's quite dangerous because of crocodiles. And there are crocodiles in here, we just can't actually see any at the moment. But yes, absolutely, it is the safest place for a hippopotamus to be. Just the most beautiful scene here. Look on the road there in front of us. We've got all the barn swallows, and they're thinking about their trip home. They're going back to Europe on their migration. We've just come into our autumn season, which is fall. You call it fall. And so those swallows are going to go, they don't like the winter, you see, so they're going to go all the way north into Europe for the duration of our winter, for the European summer. And the European summer, of course, is the same time that you have summer. August, a very good question, and one maybe that I should have explained earlier. You say, what do hippos eat? August, hippos eat grass. They only eat grass. They never eat anything other than grass. And, well, sometimes they eat elephant dung. They sometimes have to eat elephant dung. If it gets really dry and horrible, then they'll eat elephant dung. But otherwise, they eat grass. And I know you'd look at them and you'd think, well, those guys must eat fish, surely. But they don't eat fish. They eat only grass. And there's a lovely story about why they eat grass. And it goes something like this. When the Creator was making all the animals out here, the hippo said, well, he wanted to live in the water, and the Creator said, but you can't live in the water because you'll eat the fish. And the hippo said, no, I won't. I'll only eat grass and elephant dung. And the Creator said, well, how will you prove it to me? And I don't know if you know this, but when a hippo goes to the loo, when it defecates, when it makes dung, when it makes a poop, it flicks its tail from side to side, and it goes. And when it does that, our cameraman is starting to laugh. He's a ridiculous fellow. When the reason it does that is to show the Creator that there are no fish bones in the dung. Isn't that an interesting story? Anyway, that's one of the stories. I don't know that it's necessarily true. What else have you got, David? Oh, more hippo. And lovely, lovely pictures of the hippo and then the weaver's nests just above that. Nate, you want to know if any of the animals out here don't have enough food, will they eat their own babies? Nate, there is actually one species that will do that, and that's probably the crocodile. Although a mother probably wouldn't eat her own babies, a very big crocodile will eat younger crocodiles if it doesn't have enough to eat, absolutely. I think probably some of the fish would do that. I don't think you'd find that any of the other animals would. I've certainly never seen lions do it, or leopards, or cheetah, or anything like that. So I think it's unlikely. It's a good question though, isn't it? Well, Connor, you ask a very good question. If you look carefully, you can answer it yourself. You say, how do the trees live when they live in the middle of the water? Well, clearly, Connor, they don't live at all. That tree is dead. And it's dead because of the water. It used to be living, and then they built a dam here, and the water came, and the tree died. And there are 3 or 4 different kinds of trees in this waterhole that have died. And then, if you go off to the left-hand side of where... Oh, those are just as good. To the right of that, yep. There we are. Those trees are in the water, but they've only just gone into the water. We've had lots of rain, so that part of the bank has just flooded. And because it's just flooded, those trees will be okay for the next little while. They may survive the season. Righty, let's head across to Taylor. She's walking around on foot. No, she isn't. She's driving around in a vehicle, and she's looking for lions.
Right, hello everybody. Welcome, of course, in a big schools that have just joined us. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Craig, and we have been searching for lions. Can you believe that? However, we don't have any lions, but look what we've got in front of us on the road. Look at this sneaky bird. Now, as you will learn in South Africa when you join us for more and more shows, is that we have got some of the best birds in the world. And this has to be one of my favorite birds who's having a little snack at the moment in the form of a caterpillar. Delicious. Now, this is called a southern yellow-billed hornbill. Now, it's just flown around the corner. And I think that there are lots of gremlins around here. So when I say gremlins, is that because we are in the middle of Africa bringing you this live feed, sometimes it's a bit tough when you drive around. There's things that want to jump on your vehicle and prevent you from seeing things. So we're going to try and find another hornbill for you, which I suspect we will see, and I'll tell you a bit more about them. But let's go across to Tristan again and see if he's having any luck with his lion search.
To all the schools that have joined us, it's lovely to have you with us. I hope that we're going to have an incredibly good 45 minutes with you. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera I've got VM the wildebeest, and we're out on a bushwalk. So we are walking around in the middle of Africa's wilderness, looking for all the little things that the drive often misses, as well as trying to find some tracks to track down some big lion. So that's our plan for this afternoon. Now I've stopped at this little tree over here because this tree is quite an interesting one. If we have a look at the top here, you'll see that there's some little growths that are growing off the tree. Now these little growths may look like they're part of the tree, but they're not actually there because of the tree. These are caused by a little insect. So what happens is the insect comes along, it then stings the branch, and the branch, much like when you get hurt, you get sore and your body swells a little bit. It's exactly the same thing as what happens with the tree. The tree sends a growth hormone, and so the branch gets bigger and forms these little tubes that you see up here. And those little tubes, the insect then puts its larvae inside, and the larvae feeds off that growth material until it gets big enough to be able to hatch and be an adult little midge or wasp. Now this particular one that we see here is for a midge, so this is called a gall midge, and this little growth is known as a gall, and that's why that midge gets its name. And then you get a little bit of a different growth that is caused by the wasp, and both of those insects, if it wasn't for this tree, would not be able to survive in this area at all. So they need this tree in order to be able to put their larvae on it for them to survive, which is really quite amazing. Now, Dakota, you wondering if we have things like poison ivy. Well, not indigenous in this particular section, we don't have poison ivy, but we've got other things like stinging nettle, which is really horrible. It's a little plant with these little hairs on it, and when it comes into contact with your skin, it burns like crazy. It's really not very pleasant at all, but there are plants out here that are quite toxic, so some of them you've got to be careful, you can't eat them. And generally the rule is, if you're ever in the wilderness and you pick a leaf and it comes off and nothing comes out, so there's no secretion out the end of the leaf, then you know that that is okay, it's not too bad. If it's a plant that you pick and some milky liquid comes out, it almost looks like really thick milk, then you don't eat that, because that generally is very, very toxic. So out here, that's the rule that we use. Also, we're lucky because we can learn from the animals, so we watch things like baboons, and if the baboons are eating it, generally people are okay to eat it. Now I've picked some of these leaves because these leaves are quite interesting. They are covered in very, very fine hairs that gives this tree an almost silver appearance, and that's why this tree is called the silver cluster leaf. But the tree itself, if you had to eat this leaf, it is very, very, very unpleasant. You put it in your mouth and you start chewing, and it takes away all the saliva in your mouth, and you feel like you're eating cotton wool or any sort of rough fabric. It's really very, very unpleasant. I have tried it many times. It's not fun at all, so I'm not going to do it again now, but it is really, really not very fun. The other thing about this tree is that where it is useful and not like the leaves is the bark itself. If we strip layers of this bark, then we can get it together and we can twine it together and we can make a really, really strong rope. And that rope you can attach even to 2 cars, and the one car can pull the other one just with the bark of the tree, which is really quite incredible. So it's a very, very cool tree, this, and one that we really like to have in our area. It's also good to have because we know that that tree means that there is water in the area. Elias, you're wondering what the most dangerous animal is here. Well, in all likelihood, the most dangerous one, funny enough, is one of the smallest ones. So you may think lion, elephant, those kind of things are really dangerous, but in actual fact the most dangerous animal in the African bush is a mosquito. So mosquitoes in Africa, they carry what's called malaria, which is a disease that affects our blood, and it causes a lot of problems, and you can actually die from it. So you have to be very careful with mosquitoes out here. You have to spray repellent or use some of the plants that do really well with being able to get insects off you. So I'll try and find some of those plants to show you, but mosquitoes is the biggest killer of all the animals out here in Africa. If we have to look at mammals, so the big animals, then I would say probably the most dangerous one where we are is, it's a sort of, you have to speak to different guides, and different guides have different opinions, but for me the elephants are probably the most dangerous. When walking into elephants, you have to be very, very, very careful. They often can be quite aggressive, especially if they're in groups with families and they've got tiny little babies. Then you have to just be a little bit more careful. And the other one that is really, really difficult to walk around and see is a buffalo. So they're not water buffalo like you get in India and Australia. These are African buffalo or Cape buffalo, and they are very, very nasty. They've got a bad temper and they often cause a lot of problems. So it's really one that you've got to watch out for. They often lurking in thickets like what we're in now, so we have to keep our eye out and make sure that we don't bump into any of them. Funnily enough, actually, the cats, so things like lion and leopard, are really not that bad. Most of them see us on foot and they'll rather try get away than be aggressive towards you. The only time you have a problem with a cat, like a lion or a leopard, is that when you approach them and maybe they have small little cubs or they've got food and they're trying to protect it. Otherwise, generally they try get up and move away. They don't want to try and fight with us. They see us as a predator, especially during the daylight hours. At night, it's a little bit different because they know that they're in a situation where they are far more capable of hurting us, and so at night you'll find that you're becoming a little bit more prey rather than predator like during the day. Now, we're trying to negotiate this thicket. As you can see, I mean, the grass here is really, really long, so you have to be a little bit careful about where we're walking. Burj, I hope I've said that correctly. Please correct me if I was wrong, but you want to know if lions only eat meat. Well, extensively their diet is only meat, so they really try and focus on meat more than anything else. But every now and then you'll find a lion eating grass, and the reason for that is generally to try and clear their stomach of things that they can't digest. So if a lion's had a really big meal, so it's eaten a buffalo or something like that, it has hair and bone that's inside its stomach that it's not able to digest. And so what it does is it eats grass, which makes it get sick, and it can regurgitate all of that bone and hair that it's not able to digest. But they really only get nutrients from meat, not grass. Now, talking about meat eaters and herbivores, James Henry seems to have found the biggest herbivore of them all, so let's go across and see what his massive elephant is doing.
He's a huge herbivore, and he's walking very close to us, and you might see that he's very dark. That's because he was having a swim earlier. And in case you're wondering, that's an elephant, a real live huge African elephant. Isn't he lovely? Well, Anjali, this elephant is the best elephant to show you why elephants have tusks. If you look at that tusk, oh, you might just be able to see that it's got a notch. In other words, it looks like somebody's cut a small piece out of the front of the tusk. That's because he uses it all the time to do what he's doing now, which is break bushes. So they use them to break bushes. They also use them for defense. So when they want to defend each other or defend themselves, they might use them. They'll also use them to fight. The big bulls will use them to fight with each other. Let's see if we can't get a little bit closer to him. There's lots of bush in here though, so it's quite difficult. And what I don't want to do is make a big noise, which would irritate him. And you don't want to irritate an elephant because he's so big. It's about 3 times the size of this car. Let's drive around the corner here. Oh, we're going to get a lovely picture of him, I hope. Ooh. Now, Hayley, you're wondering what they use their trunks for. Well, Hayley, they use their trunks for much the same thing, except, of course, the trunk is the nose. So they've got a very long nose, and that nose is used for breathing, and also to pick things up. It's like a hand. How's that, Dave? Can you? He's going to keep moving. I think let's carry on forward a bit. The trunk is like a hand, so he scratches his ear with it sometimes. He picks food up and puts it in his mouth. He even uses it as a straw. He sucks water up into it and blows it into his mouth. But you're glad you don't have to drink like that. There, we'll get a nice view of him now. Now he's being very nice to us because we've got close to him, we've made a big noise, and he's not vaguely worried. Hello, Kylie. You ask a very good question about how big elephants are when they're born. Kylie, I don't know if you're in Canada or in America, because I know we've got schools from both today. Kylie, if you're in Canada, they weigh 100 kilograms. If you're in America, they weigh 220 pounds. So when they're born, they weigh 100 kilos or 220 pounds. Isn't that amazing? That's the same weight, in case you're wondering. It's just different ways of saying it. Isn't that amazing? Let's try if we can follow him. I'm going to go through here. We're going to push over 2 trees in front of us. But I don't want you to worry, they'll pop up. So while we try and get another view of him, let's go across to Taylor. I'm not sure what she's got to show you, but I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Oh, well, James, I think your sighting is very difficult to compete with, but we've got something else. We have got 3 hippopotamus in the water, and they are at a very, very big dam. But they're playing hide and seek with us at the moment. Now, Preston, you're wondering how many years a hippo can live for. Well, Preston, when they eventually pop their heads out, that's it. Good hippos, you all stay looking at us. It depends, of course, on what the stress and all the different things that a hippo in the wild has to go through. So you can imagine it is very, very tough out here in this big water system. There could be crocodiles, there's lions, and if it's a young hippo, something like a hyena would want to eat it. If we're having a drought, when there's not a lot of water, it means that there's not a lot of food around, and sometimes these animals go for months and months without getting enough food, so it can be very, very tough for them. So I would say that out in the wild, a hippo, oh, look at it, it's opening its mouth. I would say, beautiful. Thank you very much. Smiling for all of you. I think about between 30 and 40 years. I wouldn't say anything more than that. It could vary slightly, like I said, because life is tough out here in the bush. Ivan, and a great question from you, wondering why do hippos have such strong jaws if they are herbivores? And if you think about that, it doesn't make sense, does it? But, Isaac, when the boys fight, they use those big teeth that you could see just a moment ago, and they will fight with each other like that. So it's important that they have big, powerful jaws. But it's interesting when a hippo eats as well, is that they're not using their teeth to cut the grass. They're actually using their lips. So inside their lips, they've got these hard inner linings. So not like us, not soft lips like ours. And then they crop the grass off, pull it in, sort of chew it a little bit, but not really, and then swallow it down. But it does look a bit strange. But if you've ever seen 2 big hippopotamus bulls fighting, you'll see how impressive it is. But they're big animals as well. So if with a big body, you need a big head. And to give you an idea on how big a hippo actually is, they're about the size of a very small car. Now, Bella, you're wondering how many hippos live in a herd. So, Bella, there's lots of different collective nouns that we use to describe the groups of animals. So I'm going to give you a cool one for the hippos. Instead of saying herd, you can actually say a pod of hippos or a raft of hippos. There's a number of different things we can use, and it depends. I'm still uncertain as to what we've got over here. I suspect that it's 2 young females and a bull, or it could be 2 young bulls and an older bull. It's quite difficult to tell when there's males and females and they're in the water like this. So it depends. So you could have one dominant or territorial bull, so that's the boy, that's the male, and then you can have up to, in Zambia, I've seen a pod of about 50 hippos before. So it depends on the area that you're in. Out here in South Africa, and particularly in the Sabi Sand, we don't really see more than about, I'd say, average sizes between 10 and 15 hippos together. That's a really big pod normally. But like I said, it depends on where you go. But here, in this massive water system, we've just got 3. Can you believe that? But what might happen is as we go into winter now, we're not going to get any more rain, and the water's going to start drying up, so more hippos may come. Oh, look at that. Open your mouth wide. Turn towards us, please, so we can see. Yes. Look how cool that is. You're so lucky. People come on holiday from all over the world, and the thing that they say the most when they want to see a hippo is they say they want to see a hippo doing a big yawn. And now you've got to see it twice. You're so lucky. So lucky. Now, Rebecca, please may I have that question again from Kaylee? Kaylee, you're wondering if hippos are the most dangerous species in the water. Well, Kaylee, there's a competition between the hippos and the crocodiles, because crocodiles unfortunately kill lots of people every year, but so do hippos. Hippos kill more people than the entire big 5, which is lion, leopard, rhino, buffalo, and elephants put together. So that's a lot of amount. But the reason why people unfortunately end up dying by a hippo attack is because in South Africa and in the whole of Africa, there are a lot of rural countries still, And unfortunately, most people don't even have running water at their homes. Can you believe that? So they've got to go down to big dams like this or river systems to wash their clothes, to clean their pots and pans, to do all those types of things. And normally they'll do that first thing in the morning. So a hippo normally wakes up at this time, and then they'll leave the water as soon as the sun is set to go and eat grass. So they come out at night and they go back into the water early in the morning. And that's normally when people get stuck between a hippo coming back to the water after it's been grazing, it's been eating grass all night, and a hippo feels safest when it's in the water. So when you come between a hippo and its safety spot, you can imagine they get quite a fright and they often just charge over you. But we'll chat about that a little bit more. We'll stay a bit longer with this hippo. Let's go across to James, who's got that hornbill that we saw earlier, and it's having a dust bath.
What a very special bird that is, everyone. It's called a yellow-billed hornbill, and many of you, of course, will know it from The Lion King. That very inaccurate but very great story. And this is what Zazu was. A hornbill. And I bet you didn't know this, that Izazu means the wise man, and that's why Zazu was called Izazu, because he was the advisor. Now, I've never seen the hornbills giving lions the advice, have you, David? No, I've never seen hornbills giving anyone advice. They do, however, spend quite a lot of time with impala, which are our most common antelope, even though we haven't managed to show you one yet. And they also spend time with mongoose, which are little carnivores, and those little carnivores like to spend time with the hornbills because, well, they look out for each other. They act as sort of security guards for each other. And what that thing is looking for is grasshoppers and things to eating. Now, Alex, you're wondering about a yellow hornbill or a hornbird. You've called it a hornbird. You want to know what their predators are. Well, firstly, let me show you the difference between a yellow hornbill and a red-billed hornbill. They're all pretty much exactly the same, except, of course, they've got different coloured beaks. And their predators would include pretty much anything smaller. There's the yellow-billed, and there's the red-billed. And what you will find is that they are eaten by, well, I suppose African wildcats. Genets might eat them, civets might eat them, a couple of snakes might try and catch them, some of the hawk species might try and catch them, so there are quite a few things that would eat them. I think they're pretty good at getting out of the way, though, so they hang around with each other, and they hang around with the mongoose, and if the mongoose sees something that might want to eat them, well, they'll make a big noise, and the hornbills can go to cover and safety. Let's carry on. They've disappeared. Oh, Dakota, what a very good question you ask. You say, what does that hornbill use its long tail for? Well, let's just see if we can get another shot of it. They're there on the termite mound there. Dakota, the termites, at least, not a termite, it's a hornbill. The hornbills use their tail for flying. Remember, they've got to open their tails up when they fly. It helps them to steer. And because they've got such a long tail, they're able to stop quickly. Isn't that nice? So they can stop quickly, and then also you can see him standing there. It helps him to stay. It helps him to stay still and steady when he's trying to dig things out of the ground. So he uses it as a sort of brace. Now there's a very special bird off to the left-hand side, David. Look up there. Sorry, Lucas, I'm going to answer your question now. Down a bit, Dave, and to the right. There you go. Down. That's it. Look at that. That is called a great spotted cuckoo. Now, the great spotted cuckoo, that one is a young one. It was born probably about a month or two ago. And you know the great spotted cuckoo doesn't know who its parents are. Isn't that sad? It's never met its parents, and it will never meet its parents. And also, it will never, ever meet its babies when it makes its babies. Isn't that an amazing thing to know? The great spotted cuckoo lays its eggs in another bird's nest, and it never, ever sees them. That's what all the cuckoos do. I'm just trying to find out exactly which bird looked after this one. We've got starlings. I think it was probably a Burchell's starling. Isn't that interesting? So what it does, a Burchell starling, which isn't around here, I can't see one around here at the moment, what they do is they go into a hole in a tree and they make their home. The mum and dad bird, they make their home and they put feathers and grass, make it nice and comfortable for the babies. And the female lays the eggs, and then a cuckoo like that, or an adult like that, goes whipping into the nest when the Burchell starlings are out, perhaps getting some food, and she lays her eggs very quickly in the nest and then she gets out. Sometimes she will break the eggs' hosts, or she will break the starling's eggs, and sometimes when that bird hatches, it will either kill the babies of the starlings or throw their eggs out of the nest. And then the Burchell starlings, they're not very clever. They think that that bird, which looks nothing like a Burchell starling, is theirs, and so they raise it as their own. And so the parents of the cuckoo never see it, they never play any role in raising it, and the poor Burchell starlings, there's one there on the road just in front of us, there's a Burchell starling. Can you see it there, Dave? Far distance, yeah, that's it, that's him flying down there. There he is. That's not one, that's a fork-tailed drongo there. But isn't that an amazing story? Now, Tristan has managed to find himself something that will make most of you go...
Well, James, it depends on who you are. I think some of the girls might, but some of the boys might find it really very cool. As you can see, we've got a massive spider here, and this is called a garden orbweb spider. And it is really very, very beautiful with this beautiful sunset that is happening behind us. It is all really happening and it looks amazing. You can see that this spider has really, really bright coloration. So it's got bright yellows and blacks and stripes all over it, and that's because this spider is trying to warn everybody that it is venomous. So it's telling all the birds that you can hear around us that it's not something that must be eaten. So those colors are called aposematic coloration, and it's telling everyone, I'm venomous, don't eat me, and therefore it won't get injured, and the bird then finds out that it's not something it wants to eat. So it's really cool. Now this is a female. The females in spiders get much larger than the males. The male is actually sitting off just a little bit to the right here. He's sitting over there. Now this poor male has obviously had a very rough day because he's missing one leg on his right side of his body and two legs on the left side of his body. So he's had a really tough time in the last few days, I would imagine, and he will continue to have a tough time because with this female spider, if they mate together, then potentially he could get eaten by her, which will be not so pleasant at all. Now, this spider web that we see here is quite elaborate. It's a very big spider web. You can see if I stretch my arms across, this is a really large web that it's constructed, and it's constructed it close to a pathway. And now the reason why it wants a pathway is because if I'm an animal and I'm walking, I kick the grass, and there's lots of grasshoppers on the grass that are then going to jump up onto the web, and this spider then can catch it. And you can see over here that there is actually a grasshopper that did that. So this is a grasshopper that flew into the web and was then caught, the venom was injected, and it was wrapped up in silk, and the spider with its venom will have broken down everything inside there, and it's now going to drink it, which is really, really crazy. Now, Reese, you're asking me to repeat the name of the spider. It is called a garden orbweb spider. So orb, O-R-B, and that is what its name is, and it's one of the more common species of spider that we see here. And the orbweb spiders are really, really amazing. They build these really incredible webs with this great silk on the top. Now, I don't know if you can see it because the light is going down, but we have a silk on top that is a gold coloration. So it's not just the light, it is actually gold, and I don't know why it comes out that some of the silk is gold and the rest is the normal color, but it is quite incredible. And what happens with these silks is that they used to actually in China harvest the silk to make scarves out of it, because the silk is really very, very strong. So they used to weave it together and they'd make a scarf that was very valuable because it was made out of the spider's webs. Now, the web for this particular orb web is very, very strong as well. But Sahaj, you're wondering how the spider gets its pattern. Well, this pattern is just there basically to fool predators, and each spider will have a little bit of a different pattern. So the reason why it has it is that it's basically formed in the exoskeleton of the spider. So it's going to have this coloration that is infused into it, and it happens to every single spider, and they'll all have different patterns. So the garden orb web, even if you find another one, it won't look exactly the same as this, and that's just formed when they are young spiders, and as they grow, so the color becomes more vibrant, which is really cool. Oscar, they do indeed. So you get two types of orb web spider that are very common here, that are big like this. We get a golden orb web spider, which, as the name suggests, weaves a beautiful gold web, and then we get this garden orb web spider, which also has a little bit of gold, but you can actually see the main strands of the web here are all white, whereas only the top one, the anchor line, is the gold one. Alright, so it's only the gold is on the anchor line, but that anchor line is so strong. I can't tell you how strong this is. If I have to take it like this and I pull, you can actually see the tree will move. So that is how strong that web is. And if you had to make this anchor line about 2.5 inches or 3 centimeters, it would be able to stop a Boeing jet flying at full speed. So if ever somebody made a web that was 3 centimeters thick, they would be able to stop planes in the sky. Wouldn't that be insane? So really quite cool. Now, I was saying to you that this is on a pathway, and that when the animals walk, they're going to put their the grasshoppers into the web, but what we'll see here is that if an animal had to walk through here, then it's going to destroy the web. So what the spider's done, which is very clever, is that it's built a little pattern into its web. So the rest of the web is very difficult to see, so the insects that fly will hit it. But if an animal walks here, so if I was walking, the only way that I see it is by this white here. Now you see the silk here is much thicker, and it's called a stabilimentum, and that's telling all the animals that my web is here, please don't walk through it and destroy all my hard work. So really quite something to see. Now, Amber, you're wondering how big these webs can get. Well, this one is quite large. I have seen bigger ones. The biggest web that I've ever seen of this particular species was about my height. Now, I'm about 6'2", which is quite large, and they are about the length of my arms, wide across. So that web is huge, and it can catch quite big things. I've seen it catch doves and small birds, so it really is quite amazing. They even sometimes catch little mice if they built low to the ground. So really is quite big and quite strong. So really interesting spiders to have. Now, we're going to carry on. We're going to leave our spider in peace. It is starting to get a little bit darker, that the sun is set, and we need to start making our way a little bit closer to home. Gemma, you're wondering about the male and female spider and why the male is so much smaller than the female. The reason is because the male, once he mates with the female, he's pretty much redundant. He's no longer able to do anything. He doesn't help with looking after the little eggs or anything like that. And the female generally eats him because it's extra protein, and because she's had to lay eggs and build this big web, she's lost lots of nutrients, and so she needs to replace that nutrients, and she does that by eating the male. And so the male doesn't grow big because his life is very short, and he's going to play no part in protecting of those eggs or the little baby spiders. Whereas the mom, she's going to stay alive, and she's going to protect the eggs, and so she needs to be bigger and stronger with more venom to be able to keep those eggs safe, and then when the little spiders hatch, to keep the tiny spiders safe until they get big enough that they can look after themselves. What is quite interesting though is with this spider is that it's only going to live for a year. It will be dead, and then by next year new ones will come out, and this one will no longer be alive, which is incredible. So Avin Havu, I'm not sure where the male's leg's gone. Unfortunately, maybe something tried to attack him. He doesn't have that bright coloration, so birds will go after him, or maybe the female chased him and grabbed him by a leg, and unfortunately the leg came off. I'm not really sure. It's difficult to say, but he's definitely had a tough time of it. Somebody went after him, but it wasn't something big enough that grabbed him over the abdomen and could actually eat him. So he was lucky that he escaped that, but it probably in all likelihood was the female. So, Ava and Jackson, you're wondering if the spider bit me, would I be in trouble? Well, probably not, Ava and Jackson. It will hurt when they bite me, and it will swell, and it will get not very nice, and it will probably be quite sore for a few days. But other than that, nothing is going to happen. This particular spider, even though it's really big and it looks really scary, is actually not too bad for people. We're able to deal with the venom. They don't deliver enough venom that is toxic enough to hurt us. So it will just be a sore little bite for a few days, and then it starts to go away, and we'll be okay. So something like a bee sting would be kind of what it is like, maybe a little bit more painful than that. But other than that, it will be fine. Now, like I said, the sun is going down. We need to start trying to get back closer to home because we can't walk around in the dark. And so while we start walking, let's go across to Taylor, who I believe has got one of her favorite animals, a hippo, playing in the water.
We're still with our friends, the hippopotamus. I'm sitting with them hoping that they're going to wake up and leave the water so you could really see how big a hippo is. But sadly, they're not cooperating with us this afternoon. But that's how it goes. The animals out here, they have a mind of their own, and you cannot tell them what they need to do. They do whatever they like. But it's getting to that time of the day where they might start opening their mouths up a little bit more, perhaps splashing about in the water, getting excited for the events of the evening. Now, some of you may have been wondering, why was that hippo opening its mouth earlier? Now, typically, it's a threat display. So normally when a hippo, so you're going to hear me swatting flies with my hand every now and then because they're biting my legs, is every now and then a hippo will feel a little bit threatened. And it will open its big mouth, exposing its teeth, showing everybody, look how big my mouth is. Do you really want to mess with me? And then sometimes it's accompanied with a noise that sounds a little bit like this, but I can't do the call very well, so don't laugh at me. Can you do that noise? I think we're going to do that. Are you ready? I'm going to count to 3, and you've all got to try and do the best noise you can of a hippo. I must be able to hear you in South Africa, so you've got to do it as loud as possible. You ready? I'm going to do it with you. 1, 2, 3. I don't know how good mine is. I think that all of yours must have been much better. And I think I could hear some of you. Not all of you. I think I could hear 1 or 2 of you. Got to do it a bit louder next time. And that's one of the ways that they communicate too. William, you're wondering, why do hippo males fight each other? It's because they're fighting for dominance. So, William, when you have a pod or a raft of hippos in a section of the river, there's only one dominant male, and he looks after all those girls, and he will also, sire them so that he can have all the little babies will belong to him, basically. So they challenge each other for those spots, and they're also fighting for the best spot in the river. So essentially, they want to have a shallow area, because hippos can't swim at all. They have to sink to the bottom of the water, and then they have to also have nice spots where they can graze and lay on the bank and sun themselves and things like that. But sadly, that's all the time that we've got for you this afternoon. But I hope that you have indeed enjoyed it. And, well, a big thank you for all of us. So thank you to Crawford, Westlake, and as well as Three Oaks for joining us this afternoon. And maybe next time you'll come and join us again, and we'll have some big cats for you. But we'll see you soon, so don't run away. And remember to always tune in to Safari Live. Let's go across to James now.
There, a spectacular shot of volcano clearly erupting there over the western bank of the Drakensberg Mountains. Isn't it quite astounding how the clouds have, well, basically conspired to create a, I'm not sure what you'd call that, a fiery horizon perhaps? I think it's very, very pretty indeed, and I've been waiting desperately to show it to you for hours. That's not true. It's only just turned like that. And it's very, very gorgeous indeed. Right, now we're sitting here chitwa, not doing a great deal, David and I. We've been taking a load off, as it were. But the reason we've been taking a load off, as it were, is because we were hoping that the wild dogs might arrive here. They have apparently been on Little Gowrie, not far from here. They're running the sighting on a channel that I think probably NASA would struggle to hear. And so we're waiting here to see if they don't pop across here, because if I was a wild dog and I was in the offing for some impala to eat, this is where I'd come. Massive clearings. And we'll just have a quick look at the impala over here, who look very chilled to the max, as it were. There's a lovely sighting of them, enjoying the clearings. Tastefully produced for them by the management of Chitwa. And just as the sun, just as it dipped down below the eastern horizon there, so up came a little breeze from the southeast. Very lovely indeed. I can smell beautiful cut grass. Delightful smell on the wind. There's a kudu up in front of us there, Davy. There we are. She's enjoying the smell of the evening breeze, thanking her lucky stars she isn't as small as an impala, knowing that at least she has some chance against a horde of wild dogs or cheetah or not so much lions. And there, a waterbuck bull. Isn't that nice? Stunning stuff. Now, we were going to go all the way to Cheetah Plains, but as it's going to be very dark very shortly, we're not going to do that. We're going to make our way down the southern boundary of Vuyatela or Djuma, and hope on the way that we may come across perhaps Karula and Youngster. And so as we leave, let's head across to the bushwalk, who I think should probably be heading for home very shortly.
Well, James, we are slowly but surely making our way home. We're still just checking around to see if there's any sign of these lions. We haven't found any more signs or footprints, but we thought because we were a bit delayed this afternoon getting started, that we'd put in a little bit of an extra shift and try and stay out as long as possible. But it is starting to get quite dark, and so in all likelihood it would be better if we did start heading home now. I'm not going to walk too much because where we are is really quite dense. You can see all around me it is very, very thick. There's lots of these small black monkey oranges, and they are a nightmare to try and negotiate, especially for Wiem when he's got to walk backwards. It really isn't very easy for him. He's got to be sure of his footing, and so we don't want to walk him through that. So I think we'll try and take a safer route through Wiem. Maybe come this way. Feels a little bit better. Now, it's becoming a little bit difficult even to see insects. I've been looking around trying to find any signs of spiders and things. We did have a beautiful golden orbweb spider recently, but we haven't found any more since then, and there is very little other than massive amounts of biting flies that are hovering about my head, biting me on the neck and hands, which is not very pleasant at all. Alright, so we're going to carry on and try and see if we can get back to the vehicle before it's very dark, and try not to fall over in holes. I know James had an incident the other day, and while we do that, let's go across to Taylor and see where she is and what she's been up to in the last little bit.
Did you have a nice trip, Tristan? Right, enough of the silliness. Tristan, I hope you make it back to the coffee before darkness descends upon us. It seems to be coming quite quickly. All of a sudden, nighttime is a lot earlier than what it was a couple of weeks ago. And it's always amazing, this transition from the summer months into autumn and then, of course, into winter, how quickly times change. And we really, really are running out of light as we go along. But what we're going to do, some little little brown job just landed in the grass, but I couldn't quite see what it was. Ah! So, Rebecca has just reminded me to remind all of you that we have got a time change coming up on the 1st of April, seeing as though I was chatting about how how early it is getting dark. So it will be posted relatively soon, but the time change is going to be on the 1st of April. It's particularly for the morning safaris, but you can read the blog when it is released, and it will give you all that information. Let's go down this way over here. Let's see what we've got around here. Actually, we're on Central. I think what we might do now, this is really nice time of the day. Obviously, it's just as sunset is, falling upon us. And I think what we're going to go and do is go back towards the Vuyatela Dam and maybe have another recap and have a look at that zebra and see what it is up to. I did go past there a bit earlier, just when I finished at camp. And it seemed as though the zebra wasn't laying down anymore, it was standing and it was grazing, which was good. So I'm glad to see that it's not laying down for very long periods, it's just short intervals, and that as soon as it is back on its feet again, that zebra is feeding again, which is really good. That makes me feel happy. I do worry about things like that, and like I said earlier, it is only natural for us to feel saddened. I think if you don't feel saddened by something like that, I don't know, are you really a human? That's just my opinion, of course. But we have to sit and observe these things. We can't be interfering all the time. As much as I'd love to cover that zebra in an antibacterial cream, I know that I cannot. And natural selection is so important out here with keeping the strongest genes alive. So I think let's take this road down. It's actually been quiet. I haven't seen one elephant this afternoon. I think James has had the only elephant today. They've obviously moved off the property, because I passed one of the other guides earlier and they said the same thing. They said, where have all the elephants gone? And I said, I have absolutely no idea. This morning we had elephants coming out of our ears. Maybe they've gone back in north, or maybe they've gone further south off of our traverse. Right. Wonder what we're going to see next. I can't believe how quickly this drive is going. I don't know about all of you, but I feel as though it's flown by this afternoon. Most drives fly by though. You blink and before you know it, you've only got an hour and a half left. Right, so let's see. Maybe we'll get a couple of chameleons this evening. I suspect it's nice and warm, which is really nice. Oh, I'm going to try and actually get you a view of the sky. It's a bit tough. We're quite low down. Maybe you can have a look through this little gap, but it's not great, unfortunately. But just because we're on Central, it's quite a low road. It's not the greatest road, but there we go. You can see the different colors now forming in the sky. Hello, Cedar. You said that you're visiting Kruger in June and you're wondering what you can expect to see. Well, Cedar, you're coming at the right time of the year. That I can tell you for sure, because the grass would have, it would have been eaten by most of the animals, so it will be a lot shorter, and it will also be quite yellow, which is nice. Bit nippy, so make sure you bring a couple of warm clothes with you, especially for early in the morning and in the evenings too. You can expect to see lots of lions and leopards. I'm sure this particular area in the Great Kruger is just fantastic for both of those species. Hopefully you'll be lucky enough to see the entire big five. Maybe you'll find some black rhinos or white rhinos, giraffe. You'll pretty much see most things. You may even start to see the big herds of buffalo at that time of the year, which is quite exciting too. So that's something else. So check big open areas. What you could do is that, I don't know what area in particular you're heading to, so that also plays a massive role. But check big open grasslands. Maybe speak to a couple of locals when you do come through, and because there's lots of regulars. There's some people that literally just about live in the park. They go in almost every single day. I unfortunately don't get to go into Kruger all the time. I'm sort of more of a, I suppose we work here, we're more of specialist guides for the Sabi Sand rather than the Kruger National Park. But ask around, have a chat, and you also see at the rest camps they've got these massive boards, and they've got the various animals, and you can put pins where you've seen the sightings, and they're updated regularly. So make sure you check those from the day before, especially if you're going in early. Andy and Julia, you're wondering if the Kruger National Park is named after Freddy Krueger. No, it's not quite a nightmare over here. I'm afraid it's more of a beautiful dream, I suppose you could say. So the Kruger National Park was named after Paul Kruger. And see that this is actually something quite cool for you to go and see, is maybe if you can pop past Gakuza or head towards the Paul Kruger and see the Paul Kruger statue, which is really nice. There's a massive bridge in the Sabi River, and if you actually, that's a good idea. If you want to see the Sabi Sands, go to the Paul Kruger gate, stand on the big bridge, and if you're standing looking everything inside Sabi Sand, that's the most southern western. You'll be looking basically past that is Lion Sands. It's quite nice because then at least you can say you saw where we're driving in. We're of course on the far. We're in a completely different spot, quite a few kilometers away, but nonetheless, it's a good place to go down to and have a look. It's very pretty, especially now that we have had all the rain and we've got all the water. You'll see lots of hippos, lots of crocodiles, lots of elephants and buffalo crossing through there. It's actually a good crossing point for buffalo. I would often park myself up. There's a nice little lookout spot, and you may even see some of the guides having sundowners. I've forgotten what the lookout point is called. Anyways, and I'd go and I'd set up sundowners there, and in the evenings you'd see masses, like 1,000, between 500 and 1,000 buffalo coming down from the creek, crossing through the Sabi River, through the shallow areas, over the sandy banks, and then coming through into the Sabi Sand, moving sort of further north again. So that's really, really nice to head around there. I'm a big fan of the Skakuza area. That's really, really lovely and lush. Like I said, the Sabi River's there, the Sand River is down that side. You get a small glimpse of it. But yeah, really quite lovely. And also visit Letaba and go and have a look at their museum. You'll see some of the great tuskers that roamed the Kruger National Park. There's actually so many different things you can go and do in Kruger. It's really educational. I don't want to spoil too many surprises for you, but there's lots of big trees, oldest baobabs, and lots of little visit points you can go and have a look at it. It's really quite cool. And I don't know how long you're going there for. If anybody wants to come to the Kruger, I highly recommend seeing one of the greatest national parks in the world. I'm fairly confident in saying that. It is a beautiful piece of land and so diverse. The southern sector is completely different as you start to move up north and it becomes a little bit more arid. And the game is also different. So further north you go, you start to see a lot of sable, you start to see eland, which is one of the largest antelope in the world, if I'm not mistaken, in eland, or in eland. If you're not from South Africa, I think you would say eland. I sometimes say that. And they look like a giant cow with a massive dewlap and with big straight horns pointing towards the sky. They're really beautiful and very tasty. Very, very nice to eat as well. I quite enjoy that, and I'm sure James will agree with me, and everybody in camp. And then further south you go, lots of wild dogs and all sorts of interesting creatures. But just come and visit, that's all I'm saying. Come and visit us, come and stay at Galago, Chitwa, Arathusa, Cheetah Plains, any one of those lodges, and we'd love to meet you, of course. Right, speaking of James, I wonder if I've made him hungry now. Let's go across to him and find out.
I'm not sure why she would have made me hungry talking about eland. This is my new spotlighting technique. I hope you're enjoying it, everybody. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, it's great.
Makes me look like a policeman, doesn't it? I'm not going to tell you what Rebecca's just said to me. We have a car going past us. Eland food, I don't know. It does remind me of what she was saying, though, however, and I will talk about that once I've negotiated my way past this Ford Ranger. Aye. Njani kwala Maraman. I was hoping that he was winding his window down so that he could tell us he'd just seen a leopard here, but he hasn't. There's an impala, which we can't look at anymore. Okay, so Paul Kruger. I read once an account of Paul Kruger's contribution to the Kruger National Park. Now, if you read the old accounts, they will say, of course, that he was the father of the conservation movement in South Africa, that he was a great pioneer of species preservation and natural area preservation. Well, if you read the accounts of the first warden of the Kruger National Park, who by default had a different perspective on things because he was, of course, English, and Paul Kruger, by the time the park was designated, was, well, a long way and dead, and so he didn't really have time to defend himself. But I think it was Stevenson Hamilton, Colonel James Stevenson Hamilton, first warden of the Kruger Park, who basically said that when Paul Kruger saw a wildebeest or a buffalo, he saw biltong, and that his desire to conserve natural areas was born purely of his desire to go and hunt and then string out the meat and dry it so that he could eat it on his farm. So whether that was true or not, I don't know. He was a remarkable fellow, Paul Kruger, regardless of whether he liked to eat he liked to eat biltong or not. Tanis, you want to know about South Africa's biggest export? I actually don't know anymore. It used to be gold, of course. We were the world's #1 gold producer for a very long time. Other things that we produced in great, or used to produce in great volume, were diamonds, obviously, in Kimberley, and gold around Johannesburg, of course. Now we export quite a lot of timber. We export quite a lot of magnetite to China, which is an iron ore, but nothing like as much as, for example, the Australians do. And apparently we also get, I'm just getting this now, we also export corn, or mealies as we call them here. That's interesting. We export corn, almost certainly genetically modified, so probably not very good for you, and corn's not good for anybody if you look at it carefully enough. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. What else do we export that's of value to the world? Probably quite a lot of platinum. We still get a lot of platinum out of the ground. In fact, all of the platinum group metals, as far as I know. I suspect we export a huge amount of fruit, and in fact the fruit that we get here is fairly tasteless, because if you want to eat a good piece of South African fruit, you've got to go and buy it on the streets of London or possibly other parts of Europe. So we export a lot of fruit. I guess our greatest product at the moment, though, is tourism. Tourism is our greatest product. Let's just negotiate our way past this person here. Good morning. That was Shanae Wales-Bailey, who can't find the lights switch on her car. She's on her way back to Nkoro. So yeah, I think those are the exports of South Africa. Very nice question, that. Let's have some more questions on South Africa, because I do find these nighttime drives, well, slightly trying if we're not in the position to show you an actual animal. So any other questions you have about South Africa or Africa, we can talk about that. I can even talk about human origins now. I've been reading that. Born in Africa is the book I've been reading by Martin Meredith. Fantastic, fantastic history author he is. Now, Taylor, who's become slightly obsessed with the trials of the McCurdy-Hurdy, is currently still looking for the injured zebra.
James, can you blame me? They're named after me. So, of course, my loyalty lies with the zebra. And we have found Hopalong Cassidy, who is standing with a beautiful sunset behind it. I really feel a little bit sorry for the zebra, especially because it's all on its own, and you can desperately see it's wandering around aimlessly. Well, not aimlessly, it's trying to find the rest of the herd. Now, I haven't seen the herd at all. I haven't even seen any more evidence of them, so I don't know if those lions have completely frightened those zebra, that they've now moved away completely, which is not great, because I think the zebra would probably feel a little bit better, and I know it sounds silly, if the rest of the herd was around it. It would feel a lot safer. And remember, they do bond. Zebras have got a good bond between the member of the herd. So look at it, very, very nervous. Every little branch breaking, every leaf crinkling. Now, Stephen, you're wondering if staying near the injured mare would put the rest of the herd in danger. Possibly. There's an opportunity, but you know what might happen is that, remember the whole thing about the zebras dazzling the predators with their beautiful coats when they stand together, is that potentially if the rest of the zebra were all standing around, as they do, not necessarily concealing this injured zebra, but just standing with it, a passing group of lions may not realize that there's an injured zebra in the herd. And so to give it a better chance, of course, of blending in, because now, as it is on its own, it stands out like a sore thumb. And I'm pretty certain that the animals will be able to smell the blood off of that zebra. Their senses of smell are super keen. And then, of course, I'm sure that they'll see that there's something wrong when they look at that zebra. They'll see that there's a piece hanging off. And they're not stupid, these animals. They'll go, they'll approach, they'll see, oh, it's not getting away, you're on your own. Right, there we go, perfect target. So what we'll do is we'll probably do a couple of laps around quarantine, and when it gets a bit darker, we'll come through and we'll put the infrared light on it. But I think let's keep moving on. The rest of the impala herd is actually slowly making their way around here. So hopefully in a couple of minutes it'll be surrounded by the impala. There's a couple around here already. Now, as we're driving along, we're going to keep searching. Let me put some lights on now. James, you were wondering if I thought that hind leg looked dislocated or just sore from the injuries. I think it's just sore. So I had a good look, and actually I might be able to put up some photos. We'll stop just now and we'll have a look. I took some from this morning, and I'll zoom in. And you can actually see, I think there were 3 sort of gashes. I'm not sure if it's claw marks or if it's from teeth sort of slicing across the flesh. But not too bad. It almost looks like a little knife wound. So you can imagine it must be really, really painful. But because they're so resilient and they heal relatively quickly, I think she might be all right. But we'll see. And over the next few days, you'll probably find that those wounds will start healing and she'll start to put a bit more weight on her leg. I think the most annoying thing and the nuisance of the entire injury is the fact that she's got that piece of skin hanging from underneath her stomach. That is going to take a long time to dry and fall off. That's not going to happen overnight. And, you know, it's like with anything. There's no stitches. Of course, we can't stitch her up, that type of thing. But once that comes off, once that piece of skin cuts off, or hopefully by some miracle it falls off quicker rather than later, she'll be a lot more comfortable. I think she'll be able to move a bit more, because as she's moving around, that piece of skin is moving and it's pulling. You can imagine, if anyone has ever stubbed their toe before and you remove your nail and the top of skin of the top of your toe, you know how unpleasant it is and sore, and often you cut it off, you remove it completely and you let the skin regrow again. Well, that's what we've always done, because when that skin rips or gets hooked on something and pulls, you can just reopen the wound again, and that's sort of what's going to be happening, I suspect, with that piece of skin. So we're going to keep searching around here. I would love to do just a couple of loops around quarantine to see if somebody doesn't come sneaking out. But I think James has obviously smelt dinner, because he's now also on his way towards the DRC.
I don't know why Taylor is so convinced that I'm ravenous. I'm not going towards the DRC yet. I will be fairly soon. I'm now driving up the Triple M break because I drove the southern boundary hoping for some form of sign of Karula. Not that I would have recognized her, of course. I haven't seen her for so long. And now we're sort of ambling along, hoping for something to pop out onto the road. This is where those 2 cats were this morning. Now, Cedar, you're wondering what motivated me to become a guide. Cedar, nothing motivated me to become a guide. That's not necessarily true. I was motivated quite strongly by a terrifying woman who said that we were going to the bush. So I said, yes, okay, we'll go to the bush. Now, I was going to be a game ranger. That's what I was told that my job was going to be. This is a pathetic story. I mean, it really is, but it's true. And I said, I thought a game ranger counted grasses and stuff because that's what I'd done for my degree. She'd also done the same thing, and I thought, well, I'll go and walk transects and count animals, and it'll be quite fun. It'll be quite nice. And then I arrived at this training course, and suddenly I realized I was going to be a guide. I still didn't realize what that was. I thought maybe, I'd have to work in a lodge. I didn't really know if that meant that I would have to take game drives or walks or give talks or something like that about grasses or animals or something like that. And then halfway through the training course, I realized my job would be taking game drives and the odd game walk. And that's how there they are. One male lion, but not new, I'm afraid. That's an old track. And that was literally how I began to be a guide. And I really enjoyed the nature part of it. It became an enormously satisfying thing to do. I loved being in nature. I knew nothing about it, so it was a huge world of discovery. It's still a world of discovery for me now. And then, after about 2 years of guiding, mercifully, the girl and I split up for various reasons. Phew. Take a breath, a moment to appreciate that. And then I was a guide only full-time for about 3 years before I got into training. And that I really enjoyed. The guiding for me I found quite difficult because I found the one-on-one interaction with people quite trying. With new people. So you get new people all the time as a guide. So 6 people will come on the back of the Land Rover, they're all excited. 90% of them were, in fact, 95% of them were really nice people. Only 5% would I say were from the bowels of hell, and really my life would be infinitely enriched by not having met them. 95% were fantastic. But you meet new people every single day. They're all excited. They do ask a lot of the same questions, of course, because, well, why shouldn't they? It's their first time in Africa often. And you cannot let them down because Africa's not cheap to come to on these to these exclusive safari lodges where I used to work. It really is not a cheap holiday, even with the rand being as pathetically weak as it is. And so you've got to put the effort in. Sometimes people have saved up, and this is their holiday of a lifetime that they're coming on. And you have to appreciate that. Is that a chameleon, David? In the middle of the light. No, it's a moth. To the left. Yes, it's not a chameleon. It's a moth. It could be a leaf. It could be a leaf, David. Okay. So, after 3 years of guiding, I was just exhausted. I was emotionally tired of it, and that's because I'm fairly introverted. And then I went into training, and I really loved that, and I trained guides for a long time. And then I moved away from the bush, and eventually, after various things, fetched up here. And I find this to be my best bush job yet, because, yes, of course, we get some of the same questions and that sort of thing. But, we get to go into such depth with the animals that we speak about. I learn so much from the viewers because many of you watch a lot of the time. You all ask interesting questions. So I find I learn every single day. So that's basically how I fetched up here. Now, Taylor McCurdy, of course, I've no doubt has a story completely different, and she'd like to tell that to you now.
Right. James, I believe you've been telling your life story about how you became a guide, which is quite interesting. And it's probably, I think, one of the most asked questions we as guides are asked. Every single set of guests you get will say, how did you get into this? And it's quite a nice conversation to have, I think, around a fire rather than a dinner table with maybe a glass of apple juice. And we tell lots of campfire stories after dinner. I think that's the best time to go about that. But Rebecca, who asked that question? Cedar. and the one that's coming to the Kruger National Park soon in June. So Cedar, how I got into this, I started guiding when I was very young, but I've been exposed to sort of wildlife and going on safari. I have to turn some of these lights off because the insects are now driving me crazy. And it was quite interesting. So I went on lots of safari holidays, pretty much like 3 times a year almost. We were very fortunate. It was the holiday that my family loved to do. And every time my dad said, where would you like to go this time? Because we had one big holiday over Christmas every year. We could go anywhere. We kept asking, we want to go to the Kruger National Park, or we want to go wherever, somewhere on safari. So that's what we would do. And then I just thought to myself, I was going to go and study equine dentistry in Australia, so to become a horse dentist. And then I thought, is that really what I want to do? And I thought, nah, I don't know if I could go to university. I think that I would not survive there. And so I decided, well, let's go work in the bush. Let's do something that I've wanted to do my entire life. So that's where I went. At 19, I went and started studying and did a very quick course. It's like 4 months. And then started, well, working in the bush, really. And here I am today, still in it. My dad still says to me, when are you going to leave the bush? And I say, never. I thought it was just going to be a temporary thing. I was just coming to earn some money. And then I was going to move on to better and greater things. But I'm still here. And this is, I can tell you, is the better and the greater things to do. So it's so much fun. And what I love most about guiding is, I think, the satisfaction that you see on people's faces when they come on holiday and they are just so surprised by the smallest things. And remember, when you come on holiday and you do have a guide, a specialist guide taking you around, you basically are going on a safari and you're seeing things through their eyes and through their perspective. So I love telling stories. I'm sure you've all realized that. So that for me was one of the most amazing things. It's just, whoa, what is wrong with you, scrub hair? Why are you running towards me? Oh my gosh. Whoa, I've never had that happen to me before, so there we go. There is a scrub hare, as you can see, in the road, but it was darting at full speed towards me as we were driving down the road. So you can imagine, I thought, don't go under my tire, don't go under my tire. And thankfully, there's another one coming. We're going to see, fight. No, I don't think that they're going to fight. We will have to just sit and watch these two. But anyway, my goodness, I almost had a heart attack there. It would have been terribly awkward. And so I enjoy that. There's many different things that I love about guiding, but to be able to make somebody's holiday and for them to turn around and say, this is the best holiday I've ever been on. I've traveled the world 10 times and this was my favorite. Matt, you're wondering if there are any campfire horror stories in the Kruger. Oh, Matt, there are many. So if you ever come down to Kruger, you'll have to go and find some of the guys. But we read about them in the newspaper. You hear about things. There was one story, and I'm going to tell you this because I obviously, when you come to Kruger or when you go to a wildlife area, I want you all to be safe. Now, we talk about hyenas. We see hyenas. We see them in camp. We see them on foot. We see them at the den. And often we become complacent because a hyena is not really going to go for you, particularly if you are taller than them. A child is a different story. So a hyena on foot is really not a problem at all. These scrub hares, however, would form a tasty meal for a hyena. I think I just heard one. No, there's some other strange noises in the bush tonight. And unfortunately, this was, I think, about last year sometime. There was a young boy that fell asleep in his tent. Look, it's running towards you. See, I'm not going crazy. It is. It's now, I don't know where it is. Scrub hair, you cannot sit there. It's just moving around. Let me go back a little bit because I don't want to drive over the scrub hair or to come and sit underneath my car. You behave. Sorry. Let me get back to my story. And it was this young boy. There's obviously a lot of different things as to what happened, but essentially it came out that he'd left his tent open, this young boy, and a hyena came through and actually dragged him out of his tent. As far as I'm aware, I think the boy did survive, but that's pretty scary to think that something like just a hyena, which we are so relaxed and calm about all the time, could do something like that. So you've got to be safe. Make sure you lock up. Don't leave any food around your camp that's going to attract predator. And then, of course, make sure doors and windows are shut. You don't want to leave anything like that open. I've heard many horror stories about hyenas dragging people out of their rooms, but again, it's forgetting to, of course, close doors, zip tents up properly, things like that. So just be careful. Safety is, of course, first, and don't feed the animals. Don't ever feed them. Hello, Zoe. I suppose we better talk about, of course, these animals that we're looking at. And Zoe, your question was, what is the difference between a scrub hare or hares and rabbits? So if we look at this one that is very much is in love or infatuated by my vehicle, I don't know why it keeps running towards me, you'll notice that they've got very long ears. And those ears stand erect all the time, where often with rabbits you'll see can flop a little bit, but also scrub hares run. We just saw it running towards us, whereas rabbits hop. And also, it's a difference between breeding. No, you stay over there. Stop coming so close to me. And I don't know why it wants to come and sit in the car with me all the time. Yes, I am talking about you, but I'd prefer if you stayed outside the vehicle. Look how close it is. And it's quite happy to keep coming over. So basically as well, is it coming past you, Craig? Can you see it on your side? It's just sitting at my left tire, so I just wanted to stand up and have a look. Let's go past it. No, now it's back again. Can I please go past? I'm going to squeeze past this rabbit. Let me turn my lights off. And then the other thing is that scrub hare will actually live on top of the ground, and they'll sort of shelter themselves. Come on, little one. Under little shrubs, whereas rabbits dig burrows. So they predominantly live under the ground. They breed underground as well. They have their babies underground. So those are sort of the main differences. Come on, little scrub hare. I'm so scared because you just keep getting so close to my tires. Oh my goodness, I'm terrified. James is making me quiver as I sit here in my seat. He's in some kind of a situation. Let's go take a look.
Campfire horror stories. I don't know any. But I did find a chameleon. Can you see it, David?
Yes, I see it.
Why have you covered my monitor in a towel?
It was bleeding light onto you.
There we are. And the reason we didn't open with the chameleon, of course, is that we wanted it to remain its gorgeous, luminous color. Do you see how luminous it is there, David?
Yes, yes.
So luminous. And now it is no longer luminous because it's had the light shining on it. Very good. It is holding on very tightly there as this gentle breeze starts to blow with its zygodactyl toes. And that means two facing front, two facing back, a little bit like a woodpecker or that owl that we dissected this morning. Don't know if you were on drive with us this morning, but we dissected an owl. It was frightful, David. There was gore and guts everywhere, but it was very fascinating. All right, we're going to leave that chameleon and continue up the road here. Reese, you have asked a very good question. You said, what do I see in the future for the Kruger National Park? I nearly said hoverboards and self-drying clothing, because of course I'm a Back to the Future fan, but I don't. I see conservation has made some wonderful strides in the last little while. There are two night species, one the scrub hare, which has run away, and the other the bronze-winged courser. And Reese, I think, you know, it's not a bronze-winged courser at all. Sorry, I do apologise. It's a dickop, or thickney. That's just caught a caterpillar. Delicious. Delicious. While we look at the caterpillar being devoured, Reese, you know, conservation has made big strides in this country. We've gone from, you know, in the 1990s, the fences came down between the Kruger Park and these private reserves, the Sabi Sands, the Timbavati, the Manyeleti, and a few of the reserves up even further north of that. Then the end of the 20th century saw the opening up, or the starting of opening up, to Zimbabwe and Mozambique, to the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, and the entire Transfrontier Conservation Movement, which started in the sort of early 90s and reached its, well, hasn't reached its zenith yet, but it certainly reached fruition with the dropping of the fences between us and Mozambique. I think that happened somewhere around 2002, if I'm not mistaken. So that's tremendously positive. But what isn't positive, or some of the difficulties we face, are the increasing, well, not increasing, but the poverty of people around these reserves is a major issue. It's one of the major reasons, of course, that we have rhino poaching. It's because there is an enormous poverty issue here. And coupled with that, of course, we have a government that is, well, I mean, the government's okay now, but there are certainly very, shall we say, they'd like to call themselves left-wing, but they're not. They're very right-wing elements of the radical left, if you like, that I think would very gladly do away with something like the Kruger National Park. Now, I don't think that they will succeed. I think they're a very small minority, and I don't think that they would succeed. But, I don't think a conservation area, especially in Africa where there's so much poverty, is ever completely safe. It's not safe anywhere. I mean, you look in the United States, laws are changing there around environmentalism. So it just depends really who's in government at the time and what the general sentiment of the population is. And I know we're not supposed to talk about politics on this show, and I'm not going to, but conservation and politics are inextricably linked, especially in a country like this. So Reese, I'm cautiously optimistic that the Kruger National Park is going to survive as one of the iconic wilderness areas of the world. I think that in slightly less populated countries like Botswana and Namibia, I think there's a much greater chance that their great wilderness areas, for example, the Okavango in Botswana, they have a much greater chance of expanding those areas because there are just fewer people to look after, and they have another massive form of income from diamonds, which of course are conflicted as well, but that's to put it in simple terms. And then in terms of the actual ecology of the Kruger National Park, I think that really there have been some tremendously positive steps taken in the last little while to take hands off, to remove artificial water, to get rid of man's attempts to manipulate this environment into something that they think it should have been. And I think that's paid dividends, and I think it will continue to pay dividends for the general ecosystem health of this area. They're not shooting elephants anymore. Well, there was rumors of them starting to do that again, but I don't think they are. They've taken out all sorts of watering holes. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty good, Reese. Taylor, apparently, first person ever in the Lowveld has found 2 kinds of chameleon.
We have indeed 2 chameleons in one sighting, can you believe? So I shall show you. Number 1, who's actually quite a large chameleon, and we're looking at it, and it looks like it's changing color slightly. Let me show you the second one. I'll have to use my other spotlight. There it is. Look at that. There's the second one. Look at that. And they're probably about 8 foot apart from each other. So not too far away at all. Very, very cool. Looking all beautiful. Tails curled up. Oh, Craig, let's come back to this one. It's moving. Let's have another look at this chameleon over here. It's deciding that it's going to now walk along this branch. And I always find it so fascinating when chameleons move. And also, have a look. I always find that chameleons at night don't walk as sort of slowly and that sort of jarred motion, pretending to be a leaf blowing in the wind at night, when during the day, of course, there's a lot more raptors around that would find a chameleon a tasty treat. So yeah, so I think that's quite cool. Tonight's not making too much of a difference, but this chameleon is changing color. Can you see that? Isn't that just incredible how the different pigments are able to do things like this? Now, chameleons aren't able to control when they change colors. It's basically a physiological response to the environment. So when they stress something, they make, when it's hot, they tend to go lighter colors. But I wonder if we're not, maybe it's not feeling a bit stressed with this light, seen as though it's going almost black in color. I think that's exactly what's happening, and I've actually noticed that quite recently. I'm going to take my spotlight, and we're not going to bother this chameleon at all. Yes, I think that's what's happening. I saw it the other day as well. I had a chameleon actually try and move away from the light. It didn't seem to like the light at all. So again, we didn't even put it up on screen because it reacted so quickly. So we just let it be. So typically when they go those sort of darker colors, they stress, they're agitated, you know, and well, we try not to bother the animals out here. So when they show us that they're unhappy with our presence, we say sorry to whichever species it is, and we move on, and we go and we find something else. But that was quite cool to have. It's the first time I've ever seen two chameleons in the wild so close together like that. Whether it was a male or female, I'm not sure. It's a bit difficult to tell. You can sometimes see the genitalia of the males, which basically is in a form of a little lump underneath the base of the tail. You can sometimes see that, but if it's a young chameleon, those ones definitely weren't young chameleons. It's normally only after about, probably after 6 months or so, that they would start to develop that bulge, which you'd be able to see. But it also varies from species to species. I think on the panther chameleon, and I stand under correction, I remember watching a documentary about panther chameleons quite a while ago, and I think the males have also got a lump on their tails somewhere, which is an indication that they're a male. I'll have to do a bit of reading up. And the panther chameleon, I think, could be the largest chameleon. You see them in South America. They are really, really beautiful creatures. And the place that I'd like to go is actually Madagascar to see the different chameleons. Now, Tony, you've asked if the bigger chameleons would eat the smaller ones. I don't think so. I've never ever seen cannibalism amongst chameleons before, but again, they're such secretive creatures. I don't think too much is really known about them, especially out and watching them in the wild, because they just completely disappear during the day. They're typically feeding on insects. They're insectivores. But you know what I always say, I wouldn't put it past a desperate, starving chameleon. Who knows? But I doubt that there are any reported cases or something along those lines. But you can't write anything off. Nature surprises you all the time. I actually saw a very saddening photo this afternoon. It was doing its rounds on social media. It was a leopard that had a cheetah, which it had killed, and was actually feasting upon it and put it in a tree. So it just shows you how, we often say that leopards and lions and cheetah, they don't particularly, feed on other predators. But when you're starving and that's the only meal you can get, I can tell you right now, they're not going to say no. They will turn and end up feasting on something like that. But again, it's not common. It's not a common sight. And I'm trying to think, I don't think I've actually ever seen, no, have I? Just trying to think back of like smaller predators like jackals. I've seen lions killing a jackal before, but not eating it. They didn't play with it, but you never know. But crazy. Is it another chameleon? Oh, maybe we can break our chameleon record as well as we head back towards quarantine to go and check up on the zebra. Now, the reason why I'm keep going back, of course, is because there's often a lot of hyenas that come about on quarantine on their way towards the DRC to try and see if they can scavenge anything from us. And I don't think that they would just walk past that zebra. They might try and harass it. But we're going to race on over there because I don't think we've got much time left with all of you. And James he's up to no good again with all of his antics. He seems to have created his own spotlight.
Off to the zebra again. That has got to be the 75th time she's been to see that zebra today. This cannot be a less effective spotlighting technique than my other one, so I'm just going to go with it for a while. Never mind. I'll find another chameleon. I'm going to out-chameleon Taylor. She's got 2 for 1 so far. Let us try and get more than another 2 chameleons. Hello, Mario. You know, one of the things that I like to do, if I ever give a formal do, I wear a kilt. And I once put a chameleon on my kilt. You want to know if they can change to any color? And indeed, the chameleon took on the form of the McNaughton of Dunderave, which I thought was very impressive. No, Mario, I'm being facetious. They can't change to any color. I've seen two colors of chameleon here. Obviously, they're the shades of green that we've all seen them at, from that lime green to the very pale, luminous green in the evenings to the dull kind of olivey green. So that's quite a variation. But I have also seen a chameleon that is brown. It's completely brown, and I saw it on the winter, or not winter, sort of late winter, early spring mapani trees. Now those mapani trees up north of where we are here now go a sort of richy russet red. Where? Hyena straight up ahead, everyone. Well done, David. And so, Mario, I saw a chameleon that went that color once. So somewhere between that brown and that green, they're always going to be. Where are we going, David? Off to my right, 3 o'clock. There.
A little bit further back.
Further back. David, man, speak up. I know I missed it, clearly. Ah, well spotted. That was a great sighting, wasn't it? Let's see if we can get her again. Was she coming down the road towards us? I wonder if that's not a rebond. Going to have some foraging for her babies. Yeah, there she is. How many chameleons do you get for a hyena? Very nice. We'll just keep going back with her. I think she'll probably pop out onto the road. Unfortunately, I've driven off the road now. It's not easy reversing in the night time, David. There she is. There she is. I just didn't want to blind her, you know. She's got hungry mouths to feed. Just beautifully coloured for this kind of vegetation. You can hear the crickets calling. A couple of frogs in the distance. Lost her. There she is. She'll stop and smell every time the wind blows. Nice. Okay, let's carry on. I can see the lights of T. Macadie just in front of me there. I haven't found any further chameleons. Right, let's head over to T. Macadie. You can see her over there. You see her there, David? So let's go across to her right now.
I was waving with my spotlight. I hope you could see it. Right, you're going to have to take my word for this. I just broke my own chameleon record. I just saw another 2 chameleons, but we carried on going because I was racing back to quarantine to see where the zebra was. Let's see if we can maybe find some more. They are all out and about. Come on, Corsa. Thank you very much. So that was quite cool, and there were big ones too. I've gone from when I first started to only spotting baby chameleons, now to only finding adults. But I'm very chuffed. And next, we'll have to get them for you next time. But now I'm on 4. That is my record in one night. And I think that's my all-time record, actually. I don't think I've ever seen more than that on one safari. Now all I want to do is spot chameleons. Seeing as though I'm on a chameleon roll. Right. Zebra, where are you? I'm sure it's amongst the impala. And how cool was that you got to see a hyena? And I hope it is Ribbon, and I hope Ribbon, I know this sounds terrible, but I hope Ribbon calls her friends. Because can you imagine a sighting of hyenas taking down an injured zebra would be unbelievable. I think would be a really good word to describe that. Very sad for the zebra though, but it's just amazing. And I don't know if any of you have ever watched how hyenas take down prey. It's pretty impressive. And because most of the time we only really see them scavenging in this area. There's lots of them. All the impala are here now, which is good news. Oh my goodness, there's plenty of them. And a wildebeest. And some inyala. We'll just quickly check. See if I can find another chameleon in this marula tree. Nope. Impala, you're making it impossible for me to see. Now I can see our friend the zebra, but we need to set up the infrared light to put it on. We've just been driving around on very bumpy roads, and it isn't attached to the car. It'll be attached to the car tomorrow. I didn't want to have it bouncing around. But the zebra, oh, get out of my hair. It's just over here on the left. It's very difficult for you to see. There's lots of impala. I'm not going to put a spotlight on them. I don't think you'll just see blackness. But nothing here because the impala aren't alarming. So it's fairly relaxed at the moment. Hang on now, why are they running? Have a little listen. What's got you all panicked? I don't know what happened to the impala. They just darted for a moment. Okay, Craig. Well, I'm waiting for Craig to put the infrared on. This is in the box. Oh, Craig. Craig doesn't have arms apparently. Here we go, Craig. I don't know what else. You're going to have to just keep the camera on me, I suppose. I'll just sit still if you'd like. I'm going to look into the darkness, or you can look at me. You can choose. Maybe the darkness is better. No, not the dark. Are we on? And the light, is it attached? Is it on? Okay, how do I get more of it? Okay, I've got more of it. Ah, hold the light. Is it on? Nope. I don't think the light is on, Craig. The switch does. Well, this is wonderful. Right, I've got this thing. No, because we would see the light. It's me trying to play around with it. This is not winning. Right, we are failing absolutely miserably tonight, but that's fine. We'll take it in our stride. We'll get this light attached tomorrow, but it has been wonderful. From Craig and I, a big thank you for putting up with our antics today. But I'm going to send you across to James to, well, finish up the show.
There's kind of two of us whose antics you've had to put up with today. I'm not going to apologise, I don't think. There haven't been too many objections. And you know, in the night, well, what can you do? Unless you've got lions or leopards on the hunt. Well, then it's time for a chat. It's time for a good chat, and time for some antics, time for some chameleon competition, time for some ineffectual infrared lighting. We'll have to teach Tick Bite Fever Batman how to do that. David, look, we're not allowed to go down there, so we'll just go over here and stop. All right, everyone, that is going to be it for the Sunset Safari on this, the 23rd of March, 2017. It's my mother's birthday today. She turns 70. Happy birthday, Ma. I know you can't watch this, of course, because you don't have enough bandwidth. Everyone, we will see you tomorrow at 05:30. Thank you so much for a wonderful drive together. We will see you then. Bye-bye.